many rules in 40k, hundreds of events, and constant updates. Skip the learning curve of Warhammer and join the pros. Art of War is led by multiple world champions with decades of success. We teach clinics, stream games, and inspire you to succeed at your favorite hobby. Join our global community of gamers just like you.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Necron content video. This time, we're revisiting that tier list that we did a while ago, ranking every single Necron datasheet in the Codex and Forge World, and by golly, Jack, is there a lot of them?
Yeah, things have changed somewhat significantly. Core is now... Necron players used to complain about how little core they had. Anytime an army came out, this guy would look at some unit in the book and be like, how does this have core but insert Necron unit that I'm sure is in every list? How does that not have core? And everything's about Necron players. But...
hey, I was on their side the whole time, and finally, we got some justice.
That's right.
Justice was served by the Silent King.
On your side. Now core is everywhere in the book. Buffs go everywhere on everything. It's a whole new meta for Cron players.
On top of that, Necrons have awesome secondaries now. They have some of the best in the game, and that is going to dramatically change which units are valuable because you need to be scoring those points. So that changes a lot, and then the rest of the game going and changing around them is also quite impactful. So let's go ahead and start off by talking about the tier list as a whole. So how we rank them is basically starting at the top, tournament staples. This is going to be your units that you see in pretty much every list. They are just value town.
Yeah, you want them. Amazing. When you take them, they perform, they do what you want them to do. Solid unit.
Solid. You're going to see them all the time. Strong choice is, you'll see them in a lot of lists. They perform a particular role. They do it very well. They're justified in their cost, and you're going to see them often, though not in every single list.
Yeah, when you take them, they will perform, but they're not linchpins of your list the same way a tournament staple might be.
Yep. Then we got perfectly balanced. This is the tier in which units are, they're perfectly fine.
They're perfectly fine.
There's nothing fundamentally wrong about them, but there's also nothing that you're going to always see this unit. There's nothing absolutely outstanding about it.
Yeah. Flawed choice is exactly what it says. It is flawed in some way. Maybe it's overpriced. Maybe it doesn't do enough. Maybe its rule doesn't work the way it should. Something about this unit is holding it back.
Yeah, or competing with too many other data sheets that do the same role. Stuff like that is very common, especially as you see all these data sheets here. And then why Games Workshop Y is the tier in which units that have no purpose whatsoever are going to find themselves.
Yep.
It's a sad state of being, but they deserve it. As long as the Silent King wills it.
Yeah, we blame the datasheet itself for being bad.
No, so hopefully there won't be too many units down there, but I can imagine a couple right off the top of my head, and Forge World is going to have something to say about that. All right, so let's go ahead and head in. First one here is going to be the Gauss Flayer. Jack, we should have you do the images, because I don't even know if you know all the Necron units.
Of course I don't. All right. Up first is Guy with Gun. I assume this is the standard guy with a gun, because there's a guy with a gun right next to him, but the gun is bigger.
You have to know which gun is which. So the first one is the Necron Warrior, and he has a Gauss Flayer. So this is a Strength 4 AP1 rapid fire profile, 24
and then
inches.
There's the Gauss Reaper.
The Gauss Reaper is the second version. That's only 12-inch range, but it's Assault, and it's Strength 5 AP2, 1 damage.
Well, I know whenever I play against Necrons, they take the Gauss Reaper, so I'm assuming the Gauss Flayer is whatever.
So here goes it. So Necron Warriors, they did not get any buffs in particular, but they are one of the best OBSEC units, especially if you're not running the Custom Dynasty, Eternal Conquerors. They are the mainstay of OBSEC because Immortals, in my opinion, are inferior, and we'll get to them. Warriors are very good because they synergize with almost every single rule in here. They were always core, and on top of that, Reanimation Protocol works the best on them. You can give them various pluses, they reroll 1s on Reanimation Protocol, And things like the Ghost Arc can bring back D3 or D6 if you use the strat. And then on top of that, the Technomancer brings back D3. And so you can very easily get down to 3 models, and then all of a sudden you pop the Res Orb, and 10 models come back. And then you add the Technomancer D3, and then you add the Ghost Arc on there, and boom, you have a full Necron Warrior unit. It's happened to Jack. Jack has experienced this.
I'm doing, you know that meme where the puppy has Vietnam flashbacks? That's kind of where I'm at right now.
So
this happens to me over and over again. I lose the game.
Highly synergistic unit, and then on top of that, it also can do all sorts of shenanigans with reanimation of getting closer to enemy units, getting back on objectives, because these things happen in the command phase, so you can get back and secure an objective and defend your own primary while getting closer to opponents. It's an amazing tool.
Just spread onto your opponent's objective partway through, their turn.
Oh yeah, as say they don't have any more guns that can hit that side of the board, and you're just, Necron Warriors are now there.
Awesome.
They're hitting you, so... They synergize, they're the unit that benefits the most from reanimation protocols, so that alone puts them quite highly in my book. They do have some weaknesses. Mortal Wounds is a Necron weakness in general, but especially these big bricks of warriors. And then on top of that, they also, if you want to run a smaller unit like the 10-man, you definitely want to run the transport on top of it. It'll do less damage, but it's still a good OBSEC contest play. So I think the value is still in both of those, but the 20-man... it has so much power. I think that's the better play. But Warriors, in my opinion, I think the Flayer Immortals are perfectly balanced. I don't think they're awesome. I think Armor of Contempt hurt them quite a bit, but they're still decent into a lot of units out there.
Do they ignore cover?
1 CP, Necrons can pick an enemy unit, just ignore cover on it.
Got it. Solar Flare?
I definitely think they're better in Mephrit, but they're not because they're warriors and they synergize, they're perfectly balanced, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would say Reapers would be a strong choice.
Reapers are stronger than them, for sure. Reapers, because you can advance and still fire the weapon, you get that extra mobility of getting up the table, and then Strength 5 AP2 with ignore cover potential, it's definitely where you want to be, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
But I don't think they are a tournament staple because, like I said, they do have some particular weaknesses, and they require a lot of support to build around. Like a Chronomancer, Technomancer, Ghost Arc, Res Orb. You might want or Reanimator even.
It's support other units in this book don't need.
Yes, exactly.
But they are very strong when you get that, like, oh, you can't kill a 20-man warrior brick? Guess you lose the game.
Speaking of which, the Reanimator is here. This is a unit that you have to... You pick a unit, a friendly unit, say these Necron Warriors, and they have to be within 6 inches and within line of sight. So you have to string them back behind terrain where you might hide this thing. Its defensive and offensive stats are completely terrible.
It's not the reason to include it.
It's not the reason. It is simply for this reanimation beam. You can spend 2 CP to switch it to a different unit at any point, and it gives you +1 to reanimation. So your warriors could be reanimating on 4s, rerolling 1s.
That is pretty good. It prevents chip damage quite hard.
Exactly. And it's 80 points. It used to be 110. It went down to 80 like within a year of the codex release. It's not bad. I wish it was a little bit cheaper because it really has nothing else going for it besides that single rule. And I wish its strat was only 1 CP, but it's okay. Honestly, I think you can run it if you're running the warrior bricks. I ran it in a game against John, and it actually was quite useful.
It was, yeah. So I would put it, right there. Perfectly balanced.
Yeah. I don't think... It used to be here, but at its cost, it's okay. It's perfectly fine.
It's fine. It is very annoying, but you are investing a lot of resources into 1 brick of warriors.
Exactly. I think where the case you go like 60 warriors, this is where you want a Reanimator.
Yeah.
All right. Heading over to
CCB.
the Command Barge.
Command Barge.
So this is a Lord on a barge. He is 150 points if you don't pay for the melee weapon. And you're going to throw some upgrades on him. Enduring Will, which is a Warlord trait for -1 damage.
It's pretty good.
He is permanently transhuman, so can only be wounded on 4s, 5s, and 6s. And then on top of that, 1 CP can get him from a 5-up to a 4-up invuln. He's got 9 wounds. He has Living Metal to heal. The Technomancer with the cloak can heal him. So
he's core now?
He's core now, so he can get full rerolls to hit from the Silent King in shooting or reroll wounds in combat. He only has 4 attacks, so that's not amazing, but it's okay. And then with the Voltaic Staff, doing the full rerolls to hit for those exploding 6s is quite useful.
Where is the Silent Boy on here?
Can you see him?
Oh, there he is.
Yeah.
Next to the Ophydians.
Zarek. So So the command barge here, it's pretty good. I like the -1 damage. It's very fast. It benefits from the +1 movement now, Relentless March, and so it's just always moving 13 inches, and then it can move 14 in Protocol of the Sudden Storm, which you could put army wide. That's just a very fast. I really like him in OBSEC when he has Eternal Conquerors.
Yeah.
I think he's pretty good now. And on top of that, Code of Combat is even better. It's 3 points for killing a unit in shooting with your noble, 4 in melee, and if you kill a character, you get a command point.
I really like having a couple nobles in the list, and this is one of the best ones for just reaching out and being like, here's some shooting to finish off a unit. Guess that's 3 points. Charged in, killed, finished off a unit. That's 4 points. Like, you can't really have access. Code of Combat with just the Silent King is like a fine secondary.
Yeah.
Code of Combat with the Silent King and a Command Barge is a really, really, really good secondary. And he's also just hard to deal with. He shoots and punches like all game pretty much.
Yep.
And I just like the guy.
He's just hard to deal with. You have to overcommit to do it. You know, I mean, in a stream game recently, Nick sent 8 or 9 Hellions into him. He overwatched like a boss, killed 4 of them.
Of course. Of course.
Jackie's never seen that before. And then he killed 2 more in combat. He's a champion. So I'm a huge fan. I think he's a strong choice.
I think so,
with
for
the
sure.
Secondary game.
With the secondary game. 100%.
All right, Crypto Thralls. They used to be very strong because there was a 2-man that could do engage and just score you points and sit in your backfield and do awesome things. And it was a bodyguard for Cryptoteks. It is now a bodyguard in terms of giving them Lookout Sir. So it's a 2-man that can give out Lookout Sir. Whoop-de-doo.
Yep.
And then on top of that, they don't score engage anymore. So for 40 points, yes, they are the cheapest Necron unit, but they don't really do anything whatsoever.
They're an action monkey, which doesn't matter, really.
The Necrons have so many action monkey units that they're unnecessary.
20 points per model really doesn't make sense for Crypto Thralls.
No. I think they have gone down to a flawed choice.
I think for sure. They're not terrible. They are the cheapest unit in the book, unit for unit. They can hold your backfield objective. They're not terrible, but there's just no reason to include them.
Yeah, with Necron's secondary game, they want to prioritize speed on their nonsense units, and so for 5 points more, you get 3 Scarabs that have more wounds and are much faster.
Yeah, I like that a lot better.
Heading over to Lychguard. Lychguard went down 3 points per model from 28 to 25. And this is a unit that is 2 wounds at T5. They have a 3-up armor. With the shield that they can purchase, the Disruption Shield, they have a 4-up invuln +1 to saving throws. So in cover, they can have a 1-up.
Yep, I got the book right here.
Now, with the shield, which is my preferred profile, you only get the sword, which is AP3 1 damage, which is not great.
It is literally a power sword. +1 strength, AP3, damage 1.
It's not awesome.
That is pretty not good.
On top of that, the Lychguard are competing with a lot of much faster combat units that Necrons have. It used to be that Lychguard were the core combat unit out of the 5 original ones. Now that all the other important melee units have core, they're much less important in my mind. It's still fine if you run the Noble because they can act as they can get +1 attacks, and then in Novak they can get another +1 attack. But honestly, their lack of speed means they're not really a trading piece. They are a counter-assault piece, and I think with the Silent King and Scorpex, you already do counter-assault amazingly well. So I struggle to see a reason to bring them over some of their competing choices.
They are, if you take a 10-man brick, it's 250 points, and they can just, with the OBSEC Dynasty, you can just go on the center objective, be objective secured, be completely obnoxious to try to kill. Yeah, you have a 2-up, a 1-up save, armor save, and cover. You do have reanimation, so if they kill 3, you're going to get back 1 on average. You know, if your Siegs... Well, your multi-wound reanimations are pretty bad, but your single-wound reanimations are pretty good.
Yes.
But, yeah, I do like Lychguard as just a OBSEC Dynasty, pre-game move, 5-inch move, just get on the center objective and just be like, sup.
I think if this was the main melee choice in this book, that they would be perfectly balanced. But because they are going to be competing with a much significantly better melee options, in my opinion, I think they are flawed. I just don't think they do anything that Necrons particularly need that isn't done better by other data sheets in here.
Probably, yeah.
I think they needed to be at least a couple more points cheaper to actually compete with the other options.
There could be a list where you take 30 of them and you just pregame move and OBSEC and you just try to sit on objectives as long as possible. I don't know why you're... Like, Necrons is not the army where you do that. That would be like Deathwing, stuff like that.
Because you think about comparative armies that want to do that, like Deathwing Terminators or Leviathan Tyranid Warriors. Deathguard. They all have a total extra layer of defensive mechanics on top of that, and that's why I don't think that'll work.
I agree. Well, it's like a diet version of Deathwing.
Exactly. All right, heading over to the first C'tan. It is the Deceiver, and the Deceiver, in my opinion, has by far the worst C'tan-specific power. It's so short range, and it's rolling against leadership, which is always there's so many like leadership 11 armies now. It's just not very good. Now, what does he do well? Well, he gives you a redeploy, and redeploy is awesome.
Redeploy is great. You can't really capitalize on it because it's not like you can redeploy, move out, and blast someone off the table.
Necrons don't have supreme shooting. They have some okay options. I think he particularly synergizes with the Doom Scythe Flyer, which is one of the better Necron shooting units.
Does he put them into reserves?
He can put them into strategic reserve.
Okay.
So he has that good synergy going for him. He's -1 to hit, but outside of that, he's 70 points than a Transcendent C'tan, the same cost as the Void Dragon, and 20 points cheaper than the Nightbringer. In my opinion, he is the worst of the C'tan.
Yeah, it's not even super close.
It's just hard to justify him. His specific power just isn't very good, and on top of that, the redeploy, it can be useful with the flyers, but if you're not running them, it's just not that great because you're running pre-game move Relentlessly Expansionist, and in that case, you're getting into the position that you need to generally.
Yeah, so, I mean, his power is complete trash.
It's called Cosmic Insanity, and it's insanity how that made it through compared to the Nightbringer or the Void Dragon.
It has to be 12 inches and visible.
Yeah.
And then, you add your leadership, which I'm sure... leadership 10 on these guys, but then you have to beat your opponent's leadership plus a d6, and then they take like a mortal wound or two. It's the range requirement that really kills it, though.
Exactly. You need things at least 18 inches, if not 24.
And then the Nightbringer's power is shorter range even than that, but it hits way harder. So the reward for being in that range is just much higher.
Even though he did go down 50 points, I still think he is a flawed choice compared to the other C'tan.
Yeah, he was YGWY before the 50 points, in my opinion.
I think he's okay now. I think you could run him with the flyers, and it's not the end of the world. You're paying 70 points for redeploy, essentially. But that's a niche.
And a CP, because you're swapping out his power.
Yep. So you're definitely taking Sky of Falling Stars instead of that. So, but I don't think he's completely awful anymore. All right, heading over to the Immortals. They went down points a model. I think they could have gone down more. They are still, in my opinion, one of the worst troop choices in the game. They are slow. Their shooting is awful. Their defense is not very good. They really should be 2 wounds for the price that you're paying. They are vastly inferior to Warriors, in my opinion. And then finally, they are the cheapest troop choice because you can run them in a 5-man. So if you're running a patrol and you want to keep it as cheap as possible, they are just going to be your backfield unit that sits back there for 80 points.
I mean, if you're not running big warrior bricks, you probably run Immortals because you can run them in the squad of 5, and you take it as your default troops choice, and that's it.
Yep. And that's all they're there for. They're not there for anything else, and I just think they are still flawed.
They're in your list because your list would be illegal if you didn't include a troop.
That is precisely why, and it's just such a shame because it's a very cool unit. They have 2 attacks. They could be a decent counter assault unit, which in Novak, but
because you can take them up to 4 if you throw all the buffs on them, and then they're AP 1. But like whatever.
It's just not enough
for something called Immortals. They sure die very fast.
Yeah. So I still think they're a flawed choice, even though you will see them occasionally because they fell out of patrol. All right, heading over to Deathmarks, another unit that also went down. They went down 3 points per model. They used to be 18. Now they are 15 points. And this is the same defensive profile as the Immortal, 3-up armor, 1 wound, T5. But their gun is 36-inch range. It's a sniper. It is strength 5, AP 2, 1 damage, 6 to wound are mortals in addition.
Yeah.
Which is not the worst profile, but only 1 shot. It's heavy, but they do hit on 2s, and they can get ways to get pluses to hit. And they have access to the 1 CP strat to when your opponent brings in a unit from reserve, you can come in within 18 inches and shoot them. So it's very good for denying things that want to score, retrieve a Nephilim data, for instance.
Yeah, because you just shoot a couple away. I mean, I'm assuming that strat is like 2 CP.
1.
It's 1.
It's
okay.
1. Don't worry, it's not overcosted. It's a
I
perfectly fine
assumed.
stratagem. But at the same point, they have a similar problem to Immortals, where their defense just isn't particularly good. And you are likely putting your 5-up invuln from the Chronomancer on other units that want to get into combat. And so they're just sitting out there. Now, they're sitting out in a 2-up in cover, but a lot of armies just have AP all over the place with Armor of Contempt. I think they're okay now. I think you could run them in Mephrit, and then in 18 inches, they're Strength 5 AP 3 1 damage, and you can ignore cover with 1 CP. I don't think that's bad.
I do think their gun needs to be a little less terrible.
Yes, their gun is unfortunately not awesome, and sniping in general is better that Bodyguard went away, but they just don't have the volume to crack through characters quick enough.
No, you need like a 10-man squad doesn't even do it most of the time.
No.
A lot of characters are rocking a 4-up invuln and have like 6 wounds now, and that just means that even with 10 shots, you're not going to kill a guy even if you hit and wound with all of them. So it's like, what are we doing here?
I think you're going to see mortal wounds more often from Necrons from the C'tan to try and whittle things down. I don't think you're going to be seeing these too often. Their gun just isn't.
They're 15 points now.
15 points. It's not the end of the world.
They are pretty cheap, and 150 points, 450 points for 30 of those idiots is still a lot of bodies on the board.
Yep.
Still, not the best.
They just don't bring enough value for that points, in my opinion. All right, speaking of a unit that doesn't bring enough value for its points, we've got the Triarch Praetorians here.
Wow, what a good transition.
These guys, this is perfect. So they used to be 25 points. They went down 3 as well.
Oh, they're
Trend
fast
here,
attacks?
They are fast attacks.
There
They
we
move
go.
10 inches. They went down to 22 points a model. Now, they have a decent profile. They have a gun, so they're faster than Lychguard. They have a gun that can do a decent amount of damage, HP 2 damage, right?
One shot, 12-inch range really constricts that, though.
Sure, but that's a 22-inch threat range. It's not the end of the world. They are core now, so they can get various bonuses. Their strat is +1 to hit. They're okay. They interact with the Silent King because he buffs Praetorians. Now, what's the part that's not okay about them? Well, they are dynastic agents, and that means you don't get the best rules in the Necron Codex, which is their traits, their dynasty traits. If they got dynasty traits, I would actually quite like 5-mans running around for 100
That does sound
points.
like a Siege unit.
But because they do not get dynasty traits, they are fundamentally flawed and do not compete.
So what you're telling me is that if you take these guys, they don't pregame move, they're not obsec, they're not novoke,
They are just dynastic agents, just hanging around, coming to help.
not helping enough to hold objectives or...
Nope.
Nope. They're not obsec, not in the custom dynasty.
They don't have the worst profile, which is why they're not YGWY, but they just are not going to compete with the stuff that we're going to put up here.
I would agree. I would tend to agree.
All right, heading over to the Locust Heavy Destroyer. These guys have gone down quite a few points since the original Codex.
How many points are they now?
They are 50 points a model now, and you can take one of 2 different guns, one of which is
What are they called? What's the name?
the Gauss Destructor
Okay.
and the Enemetic Annihilator.
Exterminator. The Enmitic Exterminator.
Exterminator. That's the one I don't take.
Yes, yeah.
So volume of fire 1 damage, which is not what Necrons need, or anti-tank, which Necrons do need, but it is only 1 shot. That's not awesome, so a squad of 3 just puts out 3 shots. They can very easily get 1 hit on 2s, rerolling 1 since they're Destroyer, and their strat is reroll wounds. It's 2 CP, so it's pricey, and there's a lot of invulns in the game right now.
Yeah, and on, if you take a unit of 3, you have 3 shots there. I don't really feel like rerolling wounds on 3 dice.
No. You can take the big squad, which I did test out in a stream game against Nick's Deathguard. And let me tell you that we'll get to the regular Locust Destroyers. They're over here. Let's actually just do them together.
Yeah, they're basically the same unit.
So you can take 6 Locust Destroyers and add a heavy in there, which isn't bad. That's worth spending 2 CP to reroll wounds, except their profile is still awful. It's Strength 6, AP 3, D3 damage, and it's only 3 shots a guy. It's just not enough volume for a premier shooting unit.
If it natively rerolled wounds, it would be a good unit. But having to spend 2 CP for the privilege of making the unit decent is not what we're looking for.
Even at their current price, so the 45 points for those Locust Destroyers, it's not doing it in my mind. Or no, they're down to 40 points, and the heavy in their unit is 45 because it has to pay 5 for the gun. So it's not
bad.
It's not horrible, but they just don't do enough. I see people run the 3-man unit all the time. I've tested it myself. It's just so inconsistent. It's very likely, almost every time I play against it, my opponent, they have 5-up invulns on their thing, they happen to make 2 of them, and 1 goes through, and that's not enough. And I get shot back in return, and they die.
Yeah, that is the main problem, is that they are just not durable enough to stand up to return fire.
Yep. I think they are flawed choice.
I think the regular destroyers could be up in perfectly balanced.
Really? I think the heavies are better.
You think the heavies are better?
Yeah, this is a profile that just doesn't do enough. At least the anti-tank fills a gap in Necrons.
I can see that.
Long-range anti-tank is something that Necrons just struggle with. If you throw a ton of vehicles that
long
are durable,
range, lol, 36 inches.
as long range as we can get here.
Yeah.
I do think they are better than regular Locust destroyers.
Yeah. Okay. I can see that.
This is just doesn't do enough, and because it's shorter range, I tried it.
They're 40 points apiece for the heavy boys.
50 in the regular squad, 45 if you run it with Locust destroyers.
Oh, I see.
But still, I'd rather pay the extra points just for that platform. If I really wanted anti-tank in that form. All right, heading over to the Chronomancer.
Oh, that's not the Galactopus?
No, the Galactopus is... Where is the Galactopus?
Did you forget the Galactopus, Siegs?
No, I didn't. This was a tier list that was created by somebody else. Did they? No, he's right here.
Okay, Galactopus.
Okay. So the Chronomancer is one of the characters that you see all the time. In my opinion, he is one of the better Necron characters, and there are a lot of them. So, is this the Chronomancer? This actually might be the Technomancer. I don't remember which one is the... I think this is the Chronomancer. Yeah. We're going to say this is the Chronomancer.
Is that Xeris?
No.
Somebody's saying that's Xeris.
This is Xeris? Oh, it is Xeris. It is Xeris when I look closer. All right, so it's Illuminator Xeris, who is a Technomancer. He is the head of Technomancy.
he's the big bad Technomancer?
So what does he do? Well, he's now 145 points instead of 160, so he went down 15 points. He was one of the most overcosted characters in the game, in my opinion. Now he's still one of the most overcosted characters in the game, but he's cheaper. And he is a Technomancer, so he can heal D3 warriors or 1 core unit from a unit. So heal back 1 destroyer, and he picks 2 units because he's...
awesome.
He's the head of the Technomancers. So he gets to pick 2 units, and with the strat, he could pick 3 units. Rarely is that ever going to come up, but he's fine. And on top of that, he rolls a D3 when he picks a core unit. Now, this can be the Silent King now, or it can be a vehicle. And you can give them +1 ballistic skill, +1 strength, or +1 toughness. +1 toughness obviously being optimal on Scorpex and the Silent King. Bringing the Silent King to T8 is awesome. Though not guaranteed, and bringing Scorpex to T6 -1 to wound with the strat is very good. However, we are just going to assume, following WTC's ruling, that you can't res the Miniers.
Yeah, it seems likely that they did not.
If you can res the Miniers, then I actually do think you run him, because the Silent King is almost invulnerable. Because people just chip the Miniers and then they try and commit to the Silent King. If you can res Miniers, then he is a tournament staple, and I run him all the time. I am going to assume for this video, since the larger tournaments have started ruling, no, you cannot res Miniers because they don't have reanimation protocols on their data sheet, that he cannot do that. And so if he cannot do that, I would rather run a Technomancer at 70 points and have the free Canoptek Cloak to heal than run this guy and get a random D3 rolling. The only model that actually likes all 3 of the buffs is the Silent King, and even though he doesn't really need the +1 ballistic skill, it can help against forests and dense cover, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And minuses to hit in general. But outside of that, if you roll on your Scorpex and they get +1 ballistic skill, you're just going to be big sad.
Very sad, and that's going to happen. I know it should be 1/3 of the time, but it's going to happen fully 2/3 of the time.
So I do not rate him that highly. His anti-psychic ability is too short range to matter. Within 12 inches, or is it 9? I think it's 12. I think the original one was 9, and now it's 12.
Yeah.
If they roll doubles, it's perils. That's just not going to come up. And then he has an okay gun. It's D3 shots, but he only hits on 3s, no rerolls. Strength 8, AP4, and D6 damage, I think.
Yeah. To the people in chat, technically, rules is written. He reses Miniers.
Yep.
But we're going to go ahead and look at the writing on the wall and say that for this tier list to be a little more evergreen, we don't think that's going to stand.
Yeah. Ultimately, it actually doesn't matter what Games Workshop doesn't say in their FAQs. It matters what tournament organizers are going to rule at the events. If it works, rules is written, I 100% agree that you can res Miniers. However, based on what big tournaments are ruling, and those tournaments typically define it for a lot of the smaller ones. They are saying that you cannot res Mineers, in which case we're just going to assume no. So like I said, if you can, and your event rules you can, I would 100% run him with the Silent King. That's just automatic. That is just insane value. But in the case where you cannot, I think he is a flawed choice.
Yeah.
He should be much cheaper than two. You shouldn't be able to buy 2 Technomancers for his cost.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think the flawed choice is in any particular order at the moment. I don't.
No, they're all flawed in different ways. So just giving you a overall synopsis rather than ranking them all internally, which one's the least flawed out of them.
Yeah.
They're flawed in different ways, so that's why we're giving a little more detail for the data sheets.
All right.
Tomb Spiders.
Tomb Spoders.
They finally gained core. So most of the Canoptek units have core now. Scarabs do not. The
So you can res a
Doomstalker
Tomb
does not.
Spider now?
You can res a Tomb Spider. They go in 3-man
Interesting.
units, I believe.
Were they in fast or heavy?
They are
elites?
in fast.
Fast. Here we go. Canoptek. Other elites. Canoptek
elites.
Spoders. How many points are there?
They are 60 points a model. 5 points if you want to bring the Gloom Prism, which is a Deny the Witch with an 18, which is not bad. Their big thing is they heal Scarabs. So if you put a Scarab unit out with a 5-up invuln touching an objective, and the rest of the unit strung behind terrain, when your opponent shoots at you, you can go ahead and pull the model that's in line of sight. And if you reanimate behind the terrain. And then in your command phase, right, you get to heal a Scarab unit.
You get to heal every Scarab unit
Every
within
Scarab
6.
unit. You're not probably putting 2 units nearby, but the one, you'll heal that one, and because it's your command phase, it'll go back on the objective, and your primary scored at the end of your command phase, so boom, you get a 12, and it's awesome. That is the reason that I would run a Tomb Spider, is for that combo.
I do like Canoptek Spiders. I actually do. 60 points a model. They are pretty chunky. They're not super chunky, but they're fairly cheap. And then they res a lot of spiders. And they
Scarabs.
Scarabs.
Yeah.
They are spiders.
They are spiders.
Yes, they are fairly durable for their points cost. They are good in combat. 5 attacks each, which is kind of high for a book that came out this early in 9th edition. Strength 8, AP 3, damage 2. So they're good in combat.
Yep. You might want to run the Canoptek control node for...
Did they get core?
They did get core.
So you can res them with Technomancers.
You can res them with Technomancers. You might also thinking about bringing the Overcharger if you want to go for damage, because with them, they get plus D3 attacks from the Overcharger when they're targeted.
Damn,
So you can hit it potentially with 8 attacks per model, which I probably still would run the solo guy and just hide him behind terrain and then use him late game to just tag an objective and be OBSEC, because they're not particularly fast. But I think with the Scarab farm and the healing, that is the reason I would run one.
Yeah. Gloom Prism's good. Was it 5 points?
5 points. It's not bad. I would
5
take
points, good deny? 100% take that, I think.
I think this is a perfectly balanced choice.
Yeah.
I
I
don't think it's amazing.
I think Scarabs are going to go a little higher.
Yep.
But I think that Tomb Spider, I actually like it.
Yeah.
Them hitting on 4s, don't worry. Necrons have so many ways to make them not hit on 4s.
They're also not bad in Mephrit because you can take a bunch of guns on them, the particle beamers, and with AP1 in half range, ignore cover. That's not bad either.
That is a lot of damage.
With the Silent King, they get full rerolls to hit.
How many points are particle beamers?
I think it's 10 points for that upgrade, but I'd have to check.
For both? Because you get 2 particle beamers.
Yeah, it might be 10 for both.
Yeah. That's a decent amount of shots, 12 apiece.
I don't think the upgrade changed the points cost, so it should be in this codex. All right, heading over to Scarabs while Jack checks on that. So Scarabs are one of the cheapest units in the Necron book. They are
5 each.
5 each.
So 10 for both.
10 for both. I think I'd pay that points, honestly, if I was running Mephrit. Maybe even not.
Maybe even not. 36 shots out of the unit is a lot of shots with reroll hits from the Silent King.
Yeah, it really is meta dependent.
Yeah. It's what are you likely to see. I mean, sisters really don't like that if you ignore cover. If you ignore cover against a unit, it's like, here, take a lot of 3-up armor saves. Have fun with that.
Yep, and it's long enough range that the multi-meltas don't hit you in return. So
They're 18-inch range.
Oh, I thought this was the 36. Yep, so 18.
If they were 36, I would definitely take that.
Never mind. Yeah, probably not doing it. All right. So Scarabs, they are one of the units that is not core, but they are one of the cheaper units. 45 points for 3 models, 15 points per base. They're 4 wounds. They can get the 5-up invuln from the Chronomancer, which is very nice. They can be OBSEC, pregame move. They move 10 inches. They can get +1 from Protocol of the Sudden Storm. They are a very good action unit because Ancient Machineries is core or Canoptek, and so they can just move 10 inches, tag an objective, and get you 4 points if they are in Custom Dynasty because the action will complete at the end of your turn. They are awesome at that role. I quite like them a lot, and like I said, they can just hold down an objective for 45 points and be 12 wounds of OBSEC. I think they are very strong. I think you're going to see them in most tournament lists.
Yeah, they're incredibly annoying to get through, and then you're like, all right, I killed the unit, I threw a ton of resources into it, but I got it. All right, Siegs, how many points did I kill? And Siegs like 135. I'm like, oh my god, what have I done with my life?
The 9-man, which is 36 wounds, is 135 points. You can give it 5 up invuln, it can soak a ton of damage, and then because you're rolling so many dice, you get to reanimate a couple bases each time.
Yeah, you kill 3 of them, 1 comes back. It means it's very hard to chip them down.
Yep.
And killing them in a single activation is almost impossible.
Now, they auto give up no prisoners for you, but if you're already giving it up with the rest of your list and you don't care about that, then by all means, run them.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, the Monolith. It went down 30 more points. It's 300 base. You get to pay 5 per heat ray. Or Death Ray?
You get to, huh?
Yeah, you get to, because you want to. The other gun is not particularly awesome.
No, Death Ray is a 24-inch range. A 24-inch range Dark Lance, basically. +1 strength, but with 1 worse AP.
Yep. So in this case, you're paying 320 points for this. It is core now. If you're using, something like the... the Hypermaterial Ablator to pick a core unit to give them cover, the Monolith can just sit on a 1-up. Now... that's okay. It's T8, it's 2-up armor base, and it has some actually good stratagem support because you can teleport things through it. That's not bad. The problem that is bad is that it's gigantic. There are a lot of guns in this game that have very high AP, high damage, and it has no other defensive mechanics, no quantum shielding here, no invulnerable save. And on top of that, it doesn't have fly.
Yep.
Why does it not have fly? It's literally shown in the codex flying down, descending from the sky.
It is almost impossible to move around boards.
Yes.
With an 8-inch move, if it gets bracketed, I mean...
It moves 9 now because of Relentless March since it's 4. And Protocol of the Sudden Storm can make it move 10 a turn. But it is so easy to move block, and man, it's hard to fit between terrain on most modern formats.
That isn't even the biggest problem it has.
Yeah.
The biggest problem it has is it's a Lord of War, which means it takes up a detachment. And if you take up a detachment, guess what? You're losing out on either the Silent King or a C'tan.
Yep.
And this guy is not good enough to be throwing around, dropping C'tans, dropping the Silent King to bring him in.
Nope, he is not. So the Monolith is still... he needs fly. It just needs fly. It's a flawed choice. I don't think he's 100%. I don't think he's completely terrible.
Listen, getting core kept him out of YGWY.
It really did.
Not by a lot. He would
have been down here.
Not by a lot, though.
We'll see another vehicle that got core and is still YGWY in a second. But it's not the worst thing because its stratagem support is actually quite good. Teleporting OBSEC units out of it into your opponent's lines is cool. But
it's funny.
It's still hard to maneuver it.
It also teleports your opponent out of existence.
Indeed. So we got a $10 super chat from Dallin. Thank you so much. What do you think will be the best dynasty for competitive with the new changes? I am 100% on board. That is the custom dynasty of Eternal Conquerors for OBSEC and Relentlessly Expansionist for pregame move. I think those two synergize extremely well with the secondary game that Necrons have, which is all about board control. And even though I love Novak personally, I've been running it for a long time, I think it plays second fiddle now with the secondary changes. Still very good. I think it's the second best dynasty, but I do believe that the custom one is the best.
Yeah, for sure.
And if you want to check out any other videos, check out the game that I played against Nick on YouTube up against his Deathguard.
Sounds good.
Yep. In addition to all the War Room games that I've been playing with Necrons.
All right. Nightbringer.
The Bringer of Night, he went down by 50 points from 370 to 320. Yeah. So he's 20 more points than the other named C'tan and 90 more points than the Transcendent. Gaze of Death is a pretty good C'tan power. When you get close, that and Cosmic Fire can do a lot of mortal wounds. He ignores phase cap, so he's good against other C'tan, as well as things like Gaz or Abaddon that you might be seeing. And then he's got 6 attacks. He hits decently hard. And he ignores invulns as well, so you don't have to spend the strat on him. So, that's all good. 320 is still pretty pricey for what he brings, to be quite fair.
It is, but he is very scary on the board.
He is very scary, can put out a lot of mortal wounds, and you can do Sky of Falling Stars in the early game, then switch to Cosmic Fire as you get closer. I think that he is perfectly balanced.
Yeah. His power is more short range than the Deceiver, but hits dramatically harder, so it makes up for that short range, whereas the Deceiver is like, I got to get close to you, and then I find out if I do anything.
Yep.
Whereas the Nightbringer, just when he gets close, he starts dropping the mortal wounds.
Yeah, I think if he was, a bit cheaper, that he would be a strong choice. But for now, I think that he's fine. You can run him. I don't think he's amazing, but because he's compared to something like the Transcendent down at 230, which we'll get to, then it's like it's a real choice.
Yeah. You've got Ryan says that he kills Abaddon less than half the time. That's not really... You don't throw him against 9-wound Abaddon.
No, you throw him against... I've whittled down Abaddon with mortal wounds, and now I think I could go kill him.
Right. I can't kill him at 6 wounds because in one phase, but I might be able to kill him in 6 wounds in one phase with the Nightbringer.
Realistically, it's the fact that Abaddon is getting close to the rest of my important things, and I've whittled him down. I might not kill him, but I can at least tie him up and stop him from just clean going through my army.
Yeah.
That'd probably be the more likely situation. Just as a roadblock. All right, the Gloctopus. He is...
The Hexmark Destroyer.
Get ready for this, Jack, okay? He has 6 pistol shots.
Wow,
okay?
That's a lot.
Instead of the Kellermorph, where the Kellermorph just has to hit, you only get the additional shots when you kill enemy models.
That is significantly harder.
On top of that, he is Strength 6 and only AP 1/1 damage instead of multi-damage.
I'm hearing, though, he has a rule called Inescapable Death, so you cannot get away from him.
I mean, he's quite escapable, to be honest. He has the Hyperspace Hunter keyword, so he can use the strat that Deathmarks can, but he is infinitely worse than Deathmarks, in my opinion. On top of that, he can Overwatch on 2s, always, which is cool, but like I said, his gun is just not particularly good.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Strength 6,
And
AP 1, damage 1 is just...
It used to be that you could score engage points with him, and they changed that quite a bit ago. I think he is a completely flawed choice.
Yeah, his pistols don't do anything.
He's not like the end of the world worst unit in this book, but because he's still a relatively cheap character, and you can give him the relic pistol, where if it hits, or it auto hits, and you roll dice for the enemy, the number of models in the enemy unit. Still a decent tool.
He doesn't get the bonus attacks off of the
No.
off of the Enmitic Disintegrators. Like, he doesn't get to shoot it a second time, and killing a model with that does not let him fire one of his pistols a second time.
It's just, he's not very good, but he's okay. He's you might see him and you can run him and he's not the worst thing in the world, but he's not particularly good.
Yeah,
I think he's a flawed choice. Their Hyperspace Hunter is a very good strat, like those against GSC. It's an amazing strat. You come down, you kill their Acolyte unit. He can actually kill Acolytes.
Yeah, he kills Acolytes very well. He kills Guardsmen really well. Not a thing you need to do in this meta.
Yeah, so as soon as Guard and GSC are the top armies in the game, he's back up top. But not now.
Not now.
Okay.
Wraiths.
They are a unit that has good volume of attacks. They don't have inbuilt rerolls, and so that is the biggest downside to them. They can get pluses to hit, so they can hit on 3s instead of 4s, and they can throw out a ton of attacks. But the no rerolls is a tough thing in my mind. They can get reroll wounds near the Silent King, but no rerolls to hit means I think they don't compare favorably to Ophydians. However, where they do compare favorably is T5 4-up invuln on a 3-wound model. Not bad. So you pay extra points for their defense. They're 5 extra points per model, which I think is reasonable, and they can also ignore terrain in the movement and charge phase, which is useful.
Your opponent has to commit real resources to kill them.
I have found that when my opponent wants to commit real resources, they kill them anyway, even through the invuln, as I'm using them as a fast trading piece. But I think they are actually a strong choice, and you will see them quite often.
Yeah, I think they're pretty good.
They are pretty good. They are competing with some other melee choices, which means they're not a tournament staple, but I think you will see them more often than not.
Yeah, they're solid at what they do. They hit very hard because you can stack a whole bunch of buffs, and Silent King makes some reroll wounds, and they just hit fairly hard. AP2 isn't amazing, so outside of Novak, they hit less hard for sure.
Yep.
But I still
that
think
is
they're
a problem
quite
into
good.
Armor of Contempt,
Yes.
whereas like Ophidians and stuff are hitting at AP3 or 4.
Yeah.
So something to think about. Like I said, They're good enough to run often, but they are going to compete with some other things that I think might be better. Then we got Matt O with a $5 super chat. Thank you so much, Matt O. Hey guys, Necron focused, but more of a general question as well. How much do you consider giving up no prisoner points in list building? Is it just a lost cause for Necrons? So I think you can either go one direction, which is I accept that I give up 15 on no prisoners if my opponent tables me, and I'm going to destroy their primary in that so that it doesn't matter, because my secondaries are awesome. If they have one awesome secondary and a couple okay ones, that's perfectly fine to give up 15. I need to destroy their primary, though, to make sure that is a safe bet.
Yes.
In the case where you're playing in like a team event, for instance, where differential is a huge thing, if you can build a Necron list that gives up only like 10 points on no prisoners and not a guaranteed 15, that's where it's a lot more interesting. So I think it depends on the environment you're trying to run. In singles, winning by a point is just as good as winning by 20 points. So in that case, I don't care that I give up more no prisoners. But in a team environment where differential matters, I think you might want to cut down on the no prisoners just a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, just keep a lid on the no prisoners. It's possible to keep your list below 100.
It is.
So they get a 10 if they table you, which they can't guarantee that they'll do. They still might pick no prisoners, but it's just less good for them if they do that.
Exactly. And then they really need to go kill some of those backfield units that you'll have, like the Immortals.
Yeah.
All right.
You do have to make sure to skew your list a little to make that happen, but it's doable.
You ready for this, Jack? We got the Ghost Ark.
Oh boy.
Ghost Ark, if you run just one Ghost Ark, it is practically invulnerable. This thing can soak up so much damage that it is insanity. It just sits there. If it's your only vehicle, 1 CP, you give it 4 up invuln from quantum shielding. It's transhuman. It's got a boatload of wounds. It has decent shooting, and now that it's core, it gets access to +1 move. And on top of that, it can get full rerolls to hit from the Silent King in shooting.
And it has 1 CP resurrect 6 warriors. It's what it feels like. I maybe 5 sometimes.
I think the Ghost Ark, and on top of that, Ancient Machineries is core or Canoptek units can start this action. So this Ghost Ark can move 13 inches, touch an objective,
Take it away with OBSEC.
control it, and then start Ancient Machineries for you. And then it's OBSEC, so it completes it at the end of the turn.
Yeah, it's really good.
That's just Value Town. I think this is strong, and you're going to see it in most lists. I think if you don't want to go for the Immortals and you go for 10 Warriors, throwing in a Ghost Ark to be that transport, and then you have 2 waves of OBSEC, or just go 2 different directions with them, is quite strong. And then on top of that, if you're running the Warrior Brick, then the Ghost Ark is very, very good.
Yeah, for sure.
Punishes opponents that want to try and whittle it down. So, big fan of that. Transcendent C'tan, also big fan of this. It used to be 270 points, it's 230 now. Only went down 40 instead of 50, but 230 to get access to Sky of Falling Stars, which in my opinion is by far the best C'tan power, because it ignores line of sight, it's 24-inch range, and you pick 3 units. You need to roll under the number of models in the unit, and if you do, then you get, and 6s always fail, so you need to roll 1 to 5 under the number of models, and if you do, it's D3 mortals per unit. So you can very easily, with say 2 of these bad boys, start doing good chip damage to bigger squads.
One of them starts with Sky of Falling Stars, the other one switches into it.
Yep.
And then you just start draining mortal wounds outside of line of sight, 24 inches away, to multiple units, multiple C'tans. It is super strong, and there's some armies that auto lose just to 2 C'tans doing Sky of Falling Stars every turn.
Yep.
Because they also have Thunderbolt, they also have other things. They're Cosmic Tyrants, they know 2 casts too. And Sky of Falling Stars is just an insane power. It's actually crazy. No line of sight required. Does mortal wounds. Picks 3 targets. And so into Sisters, you're just like Retributor Squad, Zephyrim. All of them take D3. Retributor Squad, Zephyrim. All of them take D3. And after a turn or 2 of that, you just whittled your opponent down to being very, very unhappy.
It's the case where like a 9-man unit of Zephyrim comes into you and does a lot of damage to any Necron unit. Now, by turn 2, maybe it's a 5-girl Zephyrim unit. That's not going to just instantly kill a unit.
Yep. Sisters really don't like it.
Admech with big Ranger bricks don't like it. Necron Mirror matchup, if they run a bunch of Warriors, they don't like it.
It's not an attack, right?
It's not an attack, so they don't get to reanimate against it. Now, if that's the only thing that you can do, they can use Technomancer to help heal that back. But if you do that and then do a lot of damage to the Necron Warrior unit, you can kill it. So it's a good tool there.
I have watched 2 C'tan rip an entire Deathguard army in half.
Yep.
In just a couple turns. Just Sky Falling Stars to 3 units, Sky Falling Stars to 3 units, Transdimensional, like Thunderbolt, the other one from the other guy, and then cast an extra one. Oh, look at that. It was randomly another D3 Mortal Wounds, and it's just like...
You can pump out a lot of mortals with these things. I think they are quite good now. In my opinion, I think the Transcendent is going to be a tournament staple.
For sure. For sure.
It is very reasonably priced at its cost, and the amount of mortals opens up options for Necrons. You can play a more defensive style and just tag middle objectives and whittle your opponent down from out of line of sight, and then you get to commit your combat. Instead of throwing your combat in the center of the table and then trying to push into their deployment zone, you could play a different style with C'tan.
And the Transcendent C'tan is also incredibly difficult to get rid of.
Yep, it is phase capped. You can shoot it, but it's if you can get narrow angles for Thunderbolt and then use Sky Falling Stars on the other units.
Also against Tau, if you don't want to hold objectives out in the open, you can just put a C'tan on it.
Yep.
What are they going to do about it? It takes them like 4 turns to kill it because it heals 1 every turn.
Yep. So excellent choice. Then we have Shackleton Mangrum. Thank you so much. He's been a member for 2 months here. Random stream idea: the most broken builds of 8th and 9th edition face off against each other. Breviathan and Iron Hands versus Light Harlequins, perhaps. We actually did something like this. So this was maybe 2 years ago or a year and a half ago. We did Breviathan versus early 8th edition Ynnari, and Breviathan ended up winning that. So
yeah, I think Breviathan is the best list we've seen for the last couple editions. If we did 8th edition versus 7th edition, 7th edition would run away with it. There's no questions asked. It would just...
And 2 different role sets. We tried to play with it. 8th and 9th are similar enough that you can easily play between the 2 of them. So if you wanted us to put on something like that, the top donor of the channel, which you were in the last month, gets to choose a stream match. So
I would love to see Iron Hands versus... we'd think of the best. What's the best list from 9th edition that's been seen? Probably Light Harlequins. Nids have a good case for it.
Maybe Tyranids.
Maybe. I think probably the 9-boat Light Harlequins.
Maybe, yeah. 9
Voidweavers. And I think 9 Voidweavers actually get smoked against Breviathan.
Well,
Breviathan was so stupid.
It was, but if you want to see it on the table, we could do it. All right, heading over to...
So, Warren45 in the chat says, how are you getting 2 C'tan with Sky Falling Stars? One of them starts with it. The other one pays 1 CP to replace one of their powers with it.
There's a stratagem where you can switch out C'tan powers. So you start with 4 unique powers, one of which is Sky Falling Stars, and then the one that doesn't have it, turn 1, you spend 1 CP to switch into Sky Falling Stars on that. All right. So heading over to the
Something-omancer.
Okay,
That's not the Techno. That is none of the pictures in the book.
Yeah, it's one of the lords.
Oh, it's a lord?
Yep.
Oh boy. It is.
It's Xandric, right?
Xandric?
Yeah, it's Xandric. Nemesis or Xandric, right? No, it's not Xandric. All right.
I think it's
Xandric is here.
I think it's a Cryptek of some description.
Okay. Well, let's say it's the Technomancer because we haven't done the Technomancer.
You know what? That is the Technomancer. Does he have the little chin thingy? He does. That's the Technomancer.
All right. So Technomancer, he is a pretty darn good character. He went down by effectively 10 points because he went down 5 base and the Canoptek Cloak became free. So in that case, he's 70 points. He gets to heal D3, so things on like the Ghost Arc, he can heal D3. He can heal up your multi-wound models as well, in addition to Living Metal. And then on top of that, he brings back core units from a unit. So he brings back D3 Warriors or a Scorpec Destroyer or any of these other units that gain core. So very useful to have. He's a cheap character. And you're probably not taking any of the Arcana on them because they're not particularly good, even though they went down 5 points a model. But he's just a solid character, and you can always spend 1 CP to pick 2 units to bring back models in each of them. I think he's going to be a very standard character that you see quite often.
Yeah.
I don't think he's mandatory. There are some lists where you don't need a Technomancer, especially in a trading style where you're not reanimating the things that go across the board because the character won't be nearby. But he's a very solid character.
Very solid, for sure.
All right.
Speaking of things that are very solid, not the Doomstalker.
Okay, it's the Doomstalker. Guess what? Jack, all the Necron vehicles got core. Do you know what this thing is not?
It's a monster, isn't it?
It's a monster, and that means it's one of the few units that does not have core. On top of that, it has D6 shots, D6 damage, and it's still expensive.
No. It has D6 shots, D6 damage if you stand still.
If you stand still.
Which means your opponent will never let you see anything that is relevant unless... I don't even know what the unless is. Unless they don't care.
It's called YGWY. This is one of the worst units in the codex. It is complete garbage. It does not have a role that it does well, and on top of that, it's a mixed bag of terrible rules.
Doesn't even do well in the arcing lot. A list that like is just all arcs all the time shooting you, and this doesn't even find a spot in that.
What is even going on here? I mean, this thing could be 90 points. I still wouldn't take it. It's not good.
Probably, yeah, because it's D6 shots.
It could go down.
Realistically, strength 8, AP2, damage D3. 24 inches if it moves, by the way. 24 inches if it moves is hilarious, because this thing does not survive within 24 inches of the front lines.
No, it's completely awful. I just don't know what... It's the same thing as the Reanimator, except the Reanimator has a rule that interacts with the army. If it didn't, it would also be down here.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Speaking of units that are in YGWY, get ready for the Obelisk, Jack. I need Jack to read the profile on this thing.
How many points is this stupid thing?
It's 400 points, I believe.
Okay.
It went down another 30.
The Obelisk is 20.
Oh, no, sorry. It was cheaper than that. It has to be cheaper than that. I think it's 300 points now.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm going to be honest, because I looked at the Obelisk, I looked at the points, and then I was like, why would I ever take an Obelisk, whatever the points? So, Jack, can you clarify how many points the Obelisk is? I believe it's 300, the same as the Monolith.
This thing is terrible. It has 16 shots at strength 7, AP 0, damage 1, which is just not where it's at, even with Tesla, at 24 inches. It has fly, thankfully, but it looks big enough that you just can't really move it around the table anyway.
It's even bigger than the Monolith, I think.
Awesome. You can deep strike it, which is hilarious. It gets screened out by accident. Yep.
But read its unique rule. Okay?
If it stays still... Then the Tesla spheres have a assault 6, strength 8, and damage 2. Still AP 0, FYI. Okay. But it has to stand still.
Read its unique rule, though, the gravity pulse.
In the shooting phase, you can select one enemy unit that can fly and is within 24 inches of this model. Until the start of your next shooting phase, have the move characteristic of that unit. And if it's an aircraft, roll 2d6 for each point it takes... For each point by which the total exceeds the toughness, it suffers a mortal wound.
This is why you take the Obelisk.
And they include a rider that says each unit can only be selected for this ability once per phase, because otherwise, yeah, totally 3 of these would be so broken.
Somebody at Games Workshop thought this was a rule that mattered, and that's why you would take an Obelisk. It's YGWY. This is even worse than the Doomstalker because it's a lot more expensive. Even
with core, it has to stand still to have its guns even pretend to do something.
It is completely awful. It's, in my opinion, the worst. It might be the worst data sheet in the game. It's awful.
It is pretty bad. It has core now, which is hilarious.
It does, but guess what?
It has core and OBSEC. There's only so bad it can be.
Well, OBSEC, you have to run a full detachment of super heavies to get OBSEC.
Okay, never mind. Never mind.
Okay.
Never mind.
Never mind. Speaking of a Lord of War that is not terrible.
The Tesseract Vault.
The Tesseract Vault.
This thing hits because all of his powers are better, right?
It gets +1 to its power. Most of the powers.
And most of the powers just do an extra mortal wound every time they go off.
They get some sort of bonus for being in a Tesseract Vault. Most of them.
Yeah. Add 1 to the roll for this one. Sky of Falling Stars does 3 every time instead of D3. That is...
Yeah. This thing is 400 points. Okay? It's more expensive than the Obelisk and the Monolith, but it has a 4-up invul. That's important. It also has a 2-up armor save. It's core now because it's a vehicle data sheet, so you can give it cover, so it can sit on a 1-up. And it pumps out a ton of mortal wounds, and it has some decent anti-infantry chaff shooting. It is much better, in my opinion, than the Obelisk and the Monolith. I think you could actually run a 1, and it's not the end of the world. This is probably not the meta for it, because there's a lot of high AP multi-damage shots, but... I think you could actually consider running one.
30 wounds with a 4-up invuln in toughness 7? Wait, this is toughness 7?
Yeah. You can't have everything, Jack. Okay. This is Necrons. Just accept it. But...
I was all set to be 30 wounds, toughness 8, 4-up invuln, 2-up armor. That's super... I actually double-checked there was a 2-up because I'm like, why not? You know, it might just not be.
When you think about it, it's 100 more points than a named C'tan. You get the additional cast on the powers, and you get the bonuses to the powers. It's not awful. Now, it's a huge thing. If you were taking it, I probably would spend 1,200 points and run 3 of them, and they're all OBSEC.
There is one little quibble with this that I have. This, what it wants to do is it wants to sit about a third of the way up the board and just rain mortals on your opponent and be durable and annoying. Here's the problem. If your opponent kills it, it's going to be in the center of your army, and it is the size of, I don't know.
Just think of the biggest thing.
Your head. It is huge.
It's bigger than my head.
It is actually way bigger. It's like the size of this book. It's just massive. Here's the problem. When it dies on a 4+, it explodes. Everything when 2d6 takes d6 mortal wounds. That is not your opponent's army. That is your army. Your army is taking that. And basically, as soon as they die, 50-50 chance your army goes with it. That is very bad. But very hard to kill. Rains mortals on your opponent's head.
I think in a particular meta, you could actually see them.
Yeah.
But they are... I think you can actually run them.
High risk, high reward, I think.
Yeah. Sky of Falling Stars going off with the bonuses.
Sky of Falling Stars is doing 3 mortal wounds every time it goes off.
Yeah, it's value. So I think it's over here.
Yeah, Sky of Falling Stars is
I'm going to bump the Nightbringer up because it is better. Nightbringer is better.
I do think Nightbringer's a strong choice.
Okay.
For what it's worth.
All right, heading over to Tomb Blades. So Tomb Blades also went down points. They went down, I believe, 5 points. So they are 25 points instead of 30 if you run the Gauss, or they're 20 points per model if you run the Particle Beamer, which is the free upgrade. And I think you would do that because guess what? It's normally moves 14 inches. It's core now, so it can get well, it has been core. It can move 15 inches with the +1, and then Protocol of the Sudden Storm, it can move 16 inches. With pre-game move, it then moves 22 inches turn 1. It can tag whatever objective you want. Start Ancient Machineries, or just tag it for Treasures of the Aeons. These things are very cheap, mobile, and they do the secondary game supremely well. I think they are excellent now. Not as damage dealers, not as surviving units, but as mission playing tools. I think they are excellent, and I have been running at least 2 in my lists. I think they're going to be a tournament staple.
Yeah. A lot of this is predicated on the idea that you're taking the pregame move, Obsec Dynasty, but that is the best one by a fair bit, and I think you take it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think they are. You're going to see them. It's a 60-point unit with the particle beamers. Just go for the cheap one. And
they're 60. I thought they were 25 each, or they're 20 each.
25 with the Gauss. If you run the particle, which is free upgrade, it's 20 points.
Yeah, you run them at 60 points, and you just go take primary down. You take objectives. You run around, just being obnoxious. 60 points for a unit that fast with Obsec is actually crazy.
Yep, I think they are very strong.
You don't look at them as you don't look at them as damage dealers. You don't look at them as frontline units. They're a little missile that goes and takes down a banner and takes down 4 points on primary and
gets you Treasure of the Aeons and Ancient Machineries.
Yes, absolutely.
So they're an excellent tool at that. Then we have the Doomsday Arc, which is now core, so it gets full rerolls to hit from the Silent King. You can get +1 to hit. Now it's still D6 shots and D6 damage, and you need to remain stationary to get the scary profile. So that is still a limiting factor. They have quantum shielding, so just as before, they're pretty defensive. They are more reliable than they were previously.
Yeah, they're actually not terrible now.
I think you can maybe one just sitting in your backfield at the firing angle that you can see an objective, and it just sits there and just shoots turn after turn and gets +1. That's not bad.
Pre-game move helps you get to an angle that you want. Not amazingly well, but kind of well. And full reroll hits off of the Silent King is a hell of a drug. Even though its profiles really suffer from the I rolled a 2 on number of shots, guess I don't do anything this turn.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We've got the Triarch Stalker. This unit has the same dynastic agent problem as Praetorians, except it's not an infantry unit, and it's a big gangly vehicle.
Is it actually a vehicle?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not a monster or something?
No, it's a vehicle.
Okay.
So it has quantum shielding, which is a good defensive mechanic. It's still not... It's just not cheap enough for me to run, and its gun is meh.
Ooh, it has a multi-melta. Like literally a multi-melta that can fire a flamer, kind of.
And it can give you reroll 1s to hit, but you're going to almost certainly be running the Silent King, so you don't need that. I think it is not the worst unit in the world, but it's just a flawed choice. It doesn't help you where you need it.
I don't know what the points look like. I'm not particularly interested in getting into
135, that. I think.
But twin heavy Gauss cannon with reroll to hit is not bad. Strength 7, AP3, damage D3, 6 shots, 30-inch range. It's fine. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
It's 3 attacks, which is hilarious.
Okay, Doom Scythe, the flyer. It went down 35 points from 200 to 165. It has one of the few consistent damage weapons in the long-range weapons in the Necron book. That is Strength 12,
Again,
AP4,
36-inch range, long range.
flat 3 plus D3. That's just what Necron's longest range really is. So, that is very useful to have. And on top of that, it gets 10 shots that are Tesla. Not bad. It is core now, so it can get pluses to hit, full rerolls from the Silent King. I think this is one of the better vehicles. Its defense is still lacking, but it can just hide in your backfield and then come up. You could use the Deceiver to potentially redeploy it and or put it into strategic reserve. I think Doom Scythes are actually pretty decent, and I'm going to be trying them out this week.
Yeah, they get rerolls to hit now, and they are much cheaper. Like, they're so much better than they used to be.
Yep. And they can bring that 36-inch range extra damage with the Silent King's Mineers to help finish off tougher targets.
Yeah, they're just not the unit they used to be.
Yep. Flayed ones. They basically didn't change. They are still 10 points a model, which is very cheap. Their problem is their lack of speed. You can run them in big bricks, and they do a decent amount of damage, though they hate Armor of Contempt because minus AP is not particularly good. I like them quite a bit in Novak still because you get extra AP, and you can get +1 attack on them. They have exploding 6s to hit, so they can put out a lot of volume.
There's so many data sheets in here. Yeah, they AP1 is not where it's at, my dude, in this current meta.
Really want to look at Novak for that. But now having permanent +1 strength army-wide in your protocol, that's not bad for Flayed ones. In Custom Dynasty, they can just be OBSEC, but I prefer other units personally. It's just their lack of speed isn't great. I still think I prefer paying 3 extra points to get Warriors, so I have a gun that can shoot, and I also still get the benefits of all the extra, the Ghost Arc and the Technomancer's D3, because it's only ever 1 on them.
Yeah, one that takes up a, shall we say, a Troop's choice rather than an Elite's choice, because Elite's choice are a little better for you.
Yep. So I think it's okay. I think Flayed ones are okay. I don't think they're awful. I don't think they're amazing. 10 points is very cheap for what you get, for the wounds that you get. But at the same time, I don't think that they are going to be in every list.
I would much rather have 5 of those over 2 Crypto Thralls, for whatever that's worth.
100%.
Yeah. Not even close.
All right. Playing our game. So I believe this is the Psychomancer, the guy who's just flying.
All right, let's take a look at the pictures in the codex, and we'll see which one it looks like.
We're playing a Necron picture game over here.
Match.
He's
Makes
flying
match.
Boy. So it's not that. Yeah, it's the Psychomancer.
It's the Psychomancer.
Okay, guess what the Psychomancer does?
Nothing.
He does a bunch of things potentially in your morale phase.
It is fun that it's in your morale phase that they lose objectives secured.
Why is it the morale phase? Games Workshop, what is going on?
Yeah, because that's after you've scored your points.
If he wasn't an insanely cheap character, he would be YGWY, but he's a flawed choice.
This guy's so bad.
He is so bad, but at the same time,
so
you would get value out of these rules if it was a different timing.
Yeah, legitimately, the only thing he does is pick an enemy unit in your morale phase, which is the wrong time for this, by the way. Okay, so if you roll 3d6 and beat their leadership, which is not guaranteed, they can't perform actions, which literally does not matter in the current meta. In the current meta, if you don't complete your action at the end of your turn, you don't try. Yeah. They lose OBSEC, which is after you've already gotten your primary denied. Dope. They have advance and charge rolls, which they don't need if they're within 12 inches of one of your characters. Let's be 100% honest here. And they can't fire Overwatch, set to defend, and can't fight in the fight phase until after all eligible units in your army have done so. In your morale phase after you've already fought.
Trash.
If it was at the start of any phase, dope. Once per turn at the start of any phase, you could do it. But the fact that you make them fight last after the fight phase has ended is the... I don't understand why that exists.
It's YGWY, classic. I don't understand why this data sheet is the way it is. It doesn't make any sense, and it just doesn't do anything. Now, you can take the Out of Indicator, which is the better Arcana. 18-inch range, you pick a unit, and you roll above its leadership, and it does D3 mortal. So it's a targeted mortal wound thing that relies on leadership. Not awful, but you'd have to take him.
People love trying to throw Fight Last on enemy units so your opponent can't use them in their turn. That's not how Fight Last really works. They're going to be able to either deny your interrupt, because since they charge, they'll have fights first and fights last, so they'll fight normally. Now, they will fight after you, but generally your opponent will be able to play around that. The ability to deny interrupts is where Fight Last is at its best, and this guy cannot do that, ever.
No. So we got a $5 super chat from Mr. Jake. Thank you so much. So our Harlequins only now valuable as traveling players, losing the reliability of the luck dice. So no, Harlequins are a very strong army. We rank them in our tier list in A tier. They have an amazing secondary game, and they still play the mission super well.
Yeah, people think that because an army got worse, that means it plummets dramatically in rankings. It doesn't.
Nope.
Their secondaries are very good, so you're fast and you can do the secondaries very, very well. That's what you tech into now.
All right, we've got Mr. CAK with a $5 super chat. Thank you so much. With a Warrior Horde list, could 2 Ghost Arcs be worth it? I 100% think so with Core, because they can do the actions for you, and they are pretty tanky.
Yeah, they're obnoxious to try to kill while you have to kill warriors.
Yep, I quite like them a bit. So
right.
Usually I only run 1, but 2, I could see it. All right, so we've got the Chronomancer now.
That is the Chronomancer. Let me just consult the archives.
He gives a 5-up invuln to a unit
Little
that
cubey
desperately
boy.
needs 5-up invulns. He is a tournament staple. You pretty much see him all the time. He's a great caddy for the Veil of Darkness as well, to be able to teleport things. And now that Core is all over the place, you can teleport your Ghost Arc with 10 warriors inside into their backfield late game and be like, cool, turn 5, I'm going to walk out and just touch all these objectives, get my 12.
Yep.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think he's very strong.
He's so good. That 5-up invuln on a unit is just
Mandatory.
money.
Yep. With all the high AP in the game because of Armor of Contempt, you need the invuln.
Almost any army can kill 20 warriors in a single turn if they just have an armor save. Very few people can just kill them in a single activation with a 5-up invuln. That's where you have to drop 30 wounds on them and pray your opponent doesn't roll good.
Jack's the type of guy to go into a Scorpec unit with -1 to wound, 5-up invuln, thinking he's going to kill the unit, and then he kills 3, and I reanimate 1.
You reanimate 2. What are we talking about
I did.
here?
Jack actually watched a game where I reanimated 2 of them, and then they were like, well, I guess I just kill this whole unit. It's awesome.
I'm out of here.
Rarely happens. All right, we have Ophydian Destroyers. These guys are, in my opinion, undervalued. They are 30 points per model. They have the same profile as a Scorpec Destroyer, except the Sergeant, with the flat 3 damage, gets exploding 6s, and every model gets 2 additional swings at 1 damage. Now they're 1 less strength, but that is made up by the fact that you can be army-wide +1 strength now, and then you can use the strat on them to give them +1 strength as needed. So they hit extremely hard, even harder than Scorpec Destroyers.
And they are fast.
They are fast, just slightly faster than Scorpecs, but that's perfectly fine. And on top of that, it's their defense that you trade out. They're -1 to hit in combat, but that is just not going to be enough usually. They can give a 5-up invuln, but still, against volume of attacks, you're still going to end up dying. But they're very consistent for being able to kill things. And on top of that, a 3-man unit that can get +1 to hit, reroll 1s to hit, it's super consistent, much more so than 3 Wraiths. And they can help finish off things where you don't want to commit an entire Scorpec unit to.
They're snaky boys, so they're -1 to be hit, and reroll hit rolls of 1, and reroll all wound rolls next to the Silent King, and they're just incredibly reliable.
I like them quite a lot. I think you can run them in 3-mans or 5-mans if you want to go for damage. Either one, I think they're very reasonable.
Mm-hmm. All right, the big boy himself. I mean,
I've been running.
We'll talk about this guy for a bit. I am assuming direct control. He is the best unit. Get out of the way, Scarabs. There you go. He's the best unit in the book. Now let's talk about why.
All right. I've been running him all the time. He is the one thing that synergizes with the whole Necron book. He gives you +3 CP. Guess what that's awesome for?
Everything.
Everything. Being able to, he just lets you buy an Outrider and not feel bad about it. That's awesome. On top of that, he's your main anti-psychic defense. And guess what? Mental Interrogation, Psychic Ritual, Psychic Secondaries that are seen all over the place. Necrons usually don't have deny access. He can shut them down.
That's not why you take him, though.
That's not why. He is core now. So he has full rerolls to hit in shooting, which makes his shooting extremely consistent with 1 CP to auto wound on a Minears or even a CP reroll on the other one. Just make sure they go through because you don't have to spend them to reroll to hit now. On top of that, reroll the wound in combat.
Yep.
One of the ways to defend against him was to try and jam him up with a bunch of stuff that had transhuman or similar abilities. Now that he rerolls wounds, he's much more consistent into those types of units. Awesome. Code of combat got better. So that means that the Silent King being much more reliable in shooting in combat is a huge boon for that secondary. And it gives you CP if you kill a character. Just bonus time. That's not all, Jack. He gives out +1 to hit to all sorts of things. A lot of things are core, including himself. So he can very easily, with -1 to hit, still hit on 2s. The Silent King is just, he has a fight last aura, so he can charge in there, make something fight last, and then you can swing somewhere else with your Scorpex, then swing there with the Silent King.
Yeah, he does basically everything you'd want him to do.
He does everything.
He fills in your long-range damage output.
He gives himself +1 move now.
He fills in your close combat because he rerolls to wound and he hits like a truck. He has a fight last aura. He buffs a million different units every turn. He's an aura of Old Gulliman. Like, awesome. Like, reroll hits as an aura in shooting and reroll wounds as an aura in combat is actually bananas. And the fact they apply to himself is crazy. That's not all the buffs he gives. He gives out +1 to hit everywhere like it's candy. He gives out +1 to move. And the dude is just an absolute beast.
And he went down 20 more points, so he's 400.
Of course.
So he's just value town. I love him. I think he's amazing. I run him all the time. With these buffs, still run him all the time.
Great. And also, you've got Ryan made a good point. You better watch out if he's in a ruin. He makes everything within 2 inches fight last.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
Yeah, because he's within engagement range.
Yep.
All right, we got Jack Brown with a €2 super chat. Thanks so much. Be honest, Nick, you like Ophydians because you roll 6s.
Well, Nick is not in this in here. I think you might be thinking of Richard over here.
Nick does roll a lot of 6s.
He does roll a lot of 6s.
To be fair, but I also like rolling the 6s.
I know.
Only when it's
buddy.
important. Only when it's gonna just get Jack all activated. You know I like that. All right.
I'm out of here. I'm not putting up with that.
See you, Jack. All right. Heading over to the Lord. We've got Jack actually has to prepare for a game, so he did have to head out. So I'm going to be taking over by myself, but that is perfectly fine. We're going to go with the basic Lord. He gives out reroll 1s. Now, the Lord, that's pretty much all he does. He can take a Resorb, and it went down 5 points, and he also went down. So he's a little bit cheaper than he was, but still... He should be very, very cheap. This guy should be like 45 base points, and you pay like 10 for a Resorb. That's where I would actually consider running a basic Lord. For now, he is just competing with far superior options like the Silent King. By the point that you take the Silent King out of your list and you start adding things in, you're going to add a character and then 1 unit, and you're going to be close to the Silent King's points. That's just how Necrons work. So I don't want to spend 90 points on this guy and potentially be dropping the Silent King. That's just not going to happen. $2 super chat from Axel. Thank you so much. Immortal spam for the win. Never going to happen. They should have been 15 points. They should have went down by 3 points, I think. And Warriors should have went down 1 point. And then I think it would have been pretty even between the two of them. But I don't make the rules. But I appreciate your super chat. Heading over to the Locust Lord. I wish there was an FAQ to give this guy Noble. You didn't want to set up the game?
Siegs, I've determined you're actually an okay guy.
Okay.
I mean, okay. I think as long as I'm not made fun of anymore,
Jack,
my feelings aren't hurt.
Jack just wanted to come back for these Forge World data sheets.
Yeah, I gotta know. I gotta know.
Okay, honestly, can we do, before you have to go, let's do this one.
No, I don't. I'm good.
We're doing it, though.
Oh, yeah.
Bust open the Forge World flyer. And get ready for this guy.
Oh boy.
Night Shroud.
The Night Shroud.
Okay. Jack is a huge fan of bombers.
I think they are good. Let's find out what this one does. Death Sphere Bombardment. That is promising. That is a promising name right there. Once per battle, in your movement phase, after this model makes a normal move or advances, you can select one enemy unit and moved across. Roll 3d6 for each vehicle or monster, and roll 1d6 for each other model in the unit to a maximum of 12. For each roll of a 3+, the unit suffers 1 mortal wound. That is pretty good. That's pretty good.
Guess how many points this thing is?
I'm going to guess like 300.
No, it's 190 points. 190.
That's not bad.
Is it?
It's on a 3+, they take a mortal wound. It's uncapped.
Yes, but this thing is... What else is it doing besides that?
This is not bad, buddy. This is not
points.
terrible.
You're going to take 2 of them for 190.
With the Deceiver, possibly. You have to run the Deceiver so that they don't get blown up. But
God.
yeah, their guns aren't amazing, but you fly over a Sister's unit, and that unit disappears. Like Thanos just snapped his fingers. Bringing those timely references for the people in chat.
Now, this thing is horrible. For 190 points?
It is a lot. The bombs are not bad. You can't have me read that rule and be like, haha, right?
No, but they have nothing else going for them.
That's fair. Twin Tesla Destructor, I'm imagining, is like the AP0.
Yeah, it's the...
Fair enough. That is pretty garbage.
All right, you want to put it at flawed choice?
Yeah, it's definitely not going in YGWY. Those bombs do a lot of mortal
It's a
wounds.
rule that matters. But
like, imagine flying that over
if
like,
this thing was like 160, 150 points, then I would start getting interested about it. But 190 is just, it's too many points.
I can see that. Those bombs are not terrible.
All right, well, we're not done with the Forge World units.
Oh wait, no, it's one use only. Yeah, that's oh god, no. YGWY.
I thought you read that part.
I did, but I didn't like internalize it.
God. Come on. Jack is done with reading.
All right, what do we got? We got the Destroyer Lord.
No, I want you to do the Forge World units. We've got the.
You're punishing me, Six.
Here we go. The what is it?
The
Centipede unit.
The Centipede, the Canoptek Tomb Sentinel, Canoptek Tomb Sentinel.
Yep.
Okay. No, I'm sticking through this tier list to the end, Six.
Okay, hit me with it.
All right. It is equipped with an Exile Cannon, which sounds promising.
It's gonna exile you.
It is. It's D6, Strength 10, AP 4, Damage 3, Blast. 18-inch range is not great. And in combat, it's 4 attacks, it's Strength 7, AP 2, Damage 2.
I have no idea how many points it is because I forget.
I can't imagine this thing went down in points.
It did not. The Forge World stuff didn't.
No, Forge World stuff usually stays where it's at unless Space Marine people like it. It is the Tomb Sentinel. It's 125. It's not horrible for 125. It is a monster, so it does not have core, unlike literally every single other data sheet in here. It has an 18-inch range. 125, it does do a lot of damage when it shoots. Its combat is hilariously bad. Yeah, I could definitely see it being in YGWY.
It just doesn't make sense as a unit. Why is it? It's a shooting unit that has to get close to you.
Yeah.
And it has none of the buffs.
Put it that way. It is
It
9.
hits on 4s.
It is T7 9 wounds with a 3-up save, so it is very killable. It's not.
It hits on 4s, right?
It's of course it does.
Yeah.
Of course it does. Not core, so it doesn't get rerolls. Yeah, that's YGWY for sure. It's 110 now. I guess it must have gone down because I'm looking at the.
Oh, it did go down. All right.
Cool.
Still
yeah.
terrible.
Yeah, it's still not good. It doesn't do anything. I mean, if I play against it, it's going to pop off, get 6 shots, 6 hits, 6 wounds. I'm guarantee you every single time. But if you use this, it'll be 2 shots, 1 hit, no wounds.
All right, we got a $5 super chat from Artorius Rex. Thank you so much for the super chat. Isn't it dangerous to have such an easily killed model be the linchpin of one's entire army? There is always going to be one spot that you can hide the Silent King, generally on any sort of terrain format.
Yes. The key to keeping him alive in combat is the fight last only comes off of himself. So what you want to do is, if you're trying to kill him in combat, you charge the Menhir. Then you can activate the unit pile in and fight, and you avoid the fight last aura. So if you are the Necron player in that case, what you need to do is do what Siegs always does, which is have both pylons, or both Menhirs, together behind the Silent King, just to make it as difficult as possible to charge. And then you wrap them a lot of the time too.
And then you can have the C'tan next to them, or Scorpec destroyers, or something where if they try they physically can't engage the Menhirs.
Yeah.
All right.
And there's usually somewhere you can hide them, keep them out of range of your opponent's guns, keep them out of the angle of your opponents where they can see them. Yeah.
So we got another $2 super chat. Thank you so much. The Plasmancer is missing. Let's just say that the Plasmancer is with the Psychomancer, because Jack, go ahead and read the Plasmancer.
Oh, don't mind if
I heard mortal wounds were good, right?
They are. They're very good. This guy must be like a C'tan, right? Like,
he's a 70-point C'tan.
if you think about it. All right, let's look at the Plasmancer. At the start of the fight phase, roll a d6 for every enemy unit within 6. On a 4+, they take a mortal wound. At the end of your movement phase, if it did not fall back, roll 3 dice. For every 4+, the closest enemy unit within 24 inches takes a mortal wound. And that's it.
Yep. That is a character that could be a Chronomancer or a Technomancer instead.
That's it. No, that's all it does.
So he just consider him right here with the Psychomancer.
His mortal wound output is A, not reliable, B, is really just a mortal wound or 2 a turn, and then if you get close, he disintegrates. Yes, he dies immediately.
He did go down 5 points, so he's 65 points.
Sure.
Not good.
65 points for 1 to 2 mortal wounds on average a turn is not where it's at.
Him or every Sisters character that's cheaper than him.
Oh my god, stop. Come on.
Skitari Marshall. There's tons of characters that are in that like 50, 55 point range that are dramatically better.
To be fair, for 65 points, you can compare him to a Master of Executions.
Don't want to do that.
No. Master of Executions will punch holes in units, cut their heads off, etc. This guy will tickle them from afar.
No, the lightest tickle possible.
Just a light touch.
Okay, we got the Locust Lord. This guy is a destroyer who's a lord. He is a bit cheaper now, but he still doesn't have the noble keyword, and that is why he is just pointless. So he is a completely flawed choice. His data sheet is not like insanely awful, but there's just really very little reason to run him, frankly.
I would tend to agree. As cool as he is.
Imhotep the Stormlord.
I mean, Imhotep, Nick runs him constantly. I mean, the last time I've seen Nemesis Nick, which was a while ago.
He is a decent lord. He's got a cool mortal wound power, and he has the ability to buff up the Sawtek units, but you have to run Sawtek, and that is the main part against him. So he's a flawed choice because Sawtek is one of the worst dynasties in my opinion.
Yeah, him being locked to Sawtek is just not.
It's a shooting dynasty that doesn't do shooting well. That's not good.
He does give you 2 additional CP, but you're taking the Silent King, so like, what are we even talking about here?
Exactly.
His mortal wounds are cute. Otherwise, he's kind of not that good.
Xandrek has a power counter tactics to force you just stop your opponent from using a stratagem. That was very cool when armies relied on a stratagem to, fulfill their game plan, and it's decent now because of the command point changes. Most people don't have as many command points, and so we're like building up to use a particular stratagem. But you have to be Sawtek to run him, so he's down here.
Yeah, I would agree. Xandrek used to be really cool. Just let me go off about a past edition for about 10 seconds. He used to be able to steal a special rule from an enemy unit. So you would take Xandrek just to mess with your opponent's Death Stars. A lot of the time they would include a way to hit and run. If you played 7th edition, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, it's broken nonsense. You don't need to know. But you would steal your opponent's Death Stars. You'd steal their hit and run, so they can't leave combat with you, and they were just stuck there forever. And then your unit would have hit and run then if you wanted it. Nice. There were also a variety of other rules you could take, but hit and run would just end Death Stars, and it was hilarious every single time.
Yeah, the reason you want the noble keyword is for Code of Combat, and then on top of that, there's a relic for an infantry noble that gives them +1 wound, +1 toughness, I believe. That would be awesome if you could run the Scorpek Lord, who we'll just do right now. He is a lord who's also not a noble, who only has, go ahead, Jack, 4 attacks and -1 to hit.
Yeah, 4 and -1.
Go ahead, read this profile.
Oh my
right
god,
there.
I remember he's the Scorpek Lord. All right, so he is a big boy, huge boy with 4 attacks. So he's a little slow. He has a Flensing Claw, which is Strength 6, AP 1, Damage 1, but you make 8 whole attacks. That's... Or you can hit on 3s at Strength 8, AP 4, Damage 3, but again, 4 attacks hitting on 3s. You do reroll 1s, which is cute, and a Destroyer Cult unit within 6 inches rerolls wound, rolls a 1, which is also cute because he gives it to himself. He rolls 1s to hit and wound. 4 attacks is so bad on this guy, it should be criminal. 6 attacks minimum. Seriously, what are we even talking about here? This guy is huge, and all he does is punch in combat, really. And he does not do that at 4 attacks.
If he was a noble, because he's a Scorpek, he has access to the -1 to wound strat. And if he was a noble, you could give him the relic to give him +1 toughness and +1 wound. And that, with -1 to wound, would make him an interesting I'm going to hold something down with Obsec. But because he doesn't get that, what is his point?
His model is gigantic. He has a massive claw and a gigantic hyper-phase harvester.
Not to mention...
How does he hit like a wet
He's
noodle?
130 points, I believe.
How does he hit that wimpy? What is happening?
It doesn't make any sense whatsoever to me.
The reason I'm mad is because during the peak COVID times, when 40K was canceled, basically, 40K did not exist for about a year. And I was like, you know what I want to do when things start up again? I'm going to play Necrons. And I looked at the Necron book, and I bought myself the starter box, and I had a Scorpek Lord. And this guy was going to be my mainstay. He was so cool. Love him. He's going to walk in one side of my opponent's army, and he's going to walk out the other side covered in blood. And unfortunately, he has 4 attacks and hits on 3s. What is that? What is that? I don't understand it. We're moving on because I'm upset.
Orican. Orican is the Chronomancer who can target anybody regardless of dynasty, any core unit regardless of dynasty for the 5-up invuln. Not bad. He has an enlightened profile as well that can increase, the amount of attacks and damage that he does.
It's not even core, it's just Necron's unit.
Yeah, that's true. He used to be able to target things that weren't. So, cool.
Yeah.
And you get reroll charges on top of that. He's not bad. I just don't see why you would run him over, say, the basic Chronomancer, because the Chronomancer can be your caddy for Veil of Darkness, and he cannot, and you pay extra points for him.
Yeah.
So he's fine if you wanted to run him. It's not the end of the world. Oberyn is another Sauté character.
Oberyn Martell, fun character.
He is garbage. He is YGWY. He doesn't do anything special. He used to be able to teleport. Used to be able to do teleport shenanigans in 8th edition that actually mattered. You could take a unit with Oberyn and teleport it to Xandric. That would have been cool.
He has a lot of rules.
And they're all
has a lot of
terrible.
Rules. Yeah, they are. He can fight on death with his, again, 4 attacks. This just needs an attacks update on a lot of their characters. Why does Imatech have 4 attacks?
Also the guns, my man.
Also the
D6
guns.
D6 shots, D6 damage need to be updated, but that is unfortunately has not happened. So Anarchy the Traveler, this is a dynastic agent lord, but he has a 6-inch aura of +1 attack for core units. It's not bad. And then he also has the ability to try and take control of a weapon from a vehicle if you beat its leadership.
Within 12, which will lead to him getting absolutely smoked on the following turn if you try to do that. You're within 12 inches of one of your opponent's units with a good gun. Like, what are we even talking about here? If it's Titanic, don't even try. Because if you're picking a regular vehicle, you roll 3d6, beat its leadership. If you're against Titanic, it's 2d6, and you have to beat its leadership. And Knights are leadership 9, so good luck with that, my chief.
It's not ideal.
He is going to get killed on the crackback every single time, but the +1 attacks is really what you want.
He's 130 points now, I believe, which is very pricey for what you get. I would rather just have an entire extra unit instead of spending points on him.
Yes.
So
just including more models does make up for the extra attacks he would have gotten.
Okay, then we got the Ninth Scythe. This is the transport, and you can start things in reserve. If it dies, they are stuck in there and die, so not ideal.
Yep.
And it's a flyer that just has a bunch of no AP shots. The Doom Scythe is vastly superior.
I remember back in 6, the Night Scythe was broken. You would run a ton of them, and you would beam units onto the board. It was
it's reasonably
completely
cheap,
obnoxious.
and it has a cool synergy, but it's just not ideal. It doesn't really help Necrons where they need help. But it's not completely awful. Its
gun is fine, and especially now that you have access to full rerolls to hit and +1 to hit. A ballistic skill 2 guy with Tesla double exploding 6s, and you reroll everything that isn't a 6 is going to yield a lot of hits. It is still strength 7, AP 0, damage 1. So, but that's a lot of hits you got right there.
All right, we got the Tesseract Arc. This is a forge-rolled unit. It also has 36-inch range, D6 shots, D6 damage. And it has 3 different profiles. It is, I believe, 10 wounds. It has a 4-up invuln and transhuman, which is not bad.
What is this thing?
The Tesseract Arc. It's right here.
Right here.
So it has a decent profile, but it's 190 points for the inconsistency of a Doomsday Arc. And that is just not ideal. It is core now because it's a vehicle data sheet, so it can get the full rerolls to hit. But it also has what Jack loves, the 4-up explosion.
Ooh. The 6-inch D3 mortal wounds 4-up explosion, that's not great, I'll be honest. The fact that you can move and fire the D6 shot, D6 damage gun is, I guess, an improvement over the Doomsday Arc. But, is it, though?
At the points premium, it has less wounds. I think it's worse, in my opinion.
I would say so. I don't understand why the 3 damage variant is strength 5. Whereas the D6 damage variant is strength 8. Not both of them are equally met into vehicles. If you combine the strength, it was strength 8, AP 3, damage 3, I'd be a lot more about it.
Yep. If they went ahead and reduced this to around the Doomsday one, then I would like it. I would think it competes favorably. 175 points, I could see it. But for 30 more points, come on.
Yeah, no, for sure.
All right, we got the Void Dragon here. He went down 50 points. He's 300 points now. He is particularly good in a vehicle-heavy meta because he gets bonuses on his gun, his Voltaic Storm C'tan power, and also his combat against vehicles. So I am a pretty big fan of him in a vehicle-heavy meta because he can heal against them on a 2-up. After you kill them, you whittle the vehicles down. The Void Dragon kills a couple, heals back. He can basically be invulnerable against a vehicle-heavy list.
Yep.
And Necrons struggle against vehicle-heavy lists, so he's very good there. I think he's a strong choice.
I think he's a strong choice for sure.
Meta-dependent?
Meta-dependent. If you're seeing a lot of Knights, which Necrons really don't like to do, like they don't like to play Imperial Knights or Chaos Knights. If you're seeing a lot of Imperial or Chaos Knights, the Void Dragon might become a tournament staple, honestly, because he's like your only way of fighting back against that. You just make sure to leave as many like low wound guys to pick up with the Void Dragon as possible, so that he gets to go back to full wounds every turn, right? So you leave when you shoot. Oh, this guy's at low wounds. All right, Void Dragon, you get to pick him up. All right, gained a wound. You only really need to gain 1 wound a turn in order to make him completely unkillable, because he heals 1 automatically. If you kill 1 vehicle and they did 3 to you in shooting, you're back up to 8. Like, functionally, that's the same. If you kill 1 in shooting, 1 in combat, again, you're right back up there. If you kill 1 in shooting, 1 with your mortal wound power, and 1 in combat, like, you've healed back past your phase cap. Knights functionally cannot deal with this guy. They have to ignore him and try and table the rest of your army. They are still favored into you, even if you take the Void Dragon, because that is such a viable tactic for them. But the Void Dragon definitely helps even it up, and I really like him right now.
Yep.
They just can't kill him because he's going to heal a couple wounds extra every turn.
And he's just guaranteed damage turn after turn.
Yep. You take him with Sky of Falling Stars, and you take him with his special power. And then against vehicles, you probably switch him into Cosmic Fire and just throw him into the heart of your opponent's army and just go like Cosmic Fire, special power every single turn, and just try and make him as big a nuisance as possible.
Yep. Moving over to the Seraptic Heavy Construct. I believe it went down 50 points, so it's 600 flat.
Yep, let's look it up in the old book. Seraptic Heavy Construct. It is a Lord of War, which automatically makes me not like it very much.
It's also gigantic.
It is a vehicle with a 3-up armor save.
It's core now.
It has a 5-up invul, not a 4-up. It is core. Its guns, it has a lot of guns, Siegs. Be 100%. I mean, its guns are decent. How many points is this thing?
600.
What?
600.
So,
I believe it went down 50 points. Look at its base cost down here.
I was all set to be like, this thing's not actually terrible. Oh god, yeah, it's 600 if it went down 50, it's 600.
Yeah, it only went down 50, I believe.
Its guns are terrible for 600 points. This thing's trash.
This thing is just a pile of garbage.
It's trash.
If it had quantum shielding, I could consider thinking, but even then, quantum shielding doesn't matter as much.
I mean, its guns are decent when you reroll to hit, but that's 1,000 points plus. That's literally 1,020 for the Silent King and this jabroni, and its guns are not that good for that. You get 2d3 strength, 16 AP, 4 damage, 6 for 600 points. You get 4 shots on average, or you take the Singularity Generator that is 12 shots on average strength, 8 AP3 damage, D6 blast, which is probably what you take. But again, 600 points. Oh my god! It's also very killable.
I like how they were like, we know it's bad, just 50 points. We can't put it down anymore. They could have cut this thing. They could have had a fire sale on these Forge World units.
It's super killable for
I don't own any of the Forge World units because they're awful.
Yeah.
They're just so bad. Speaking of which, we got the Tomb Stalker.
Stop hurting me, Siegs.
Oh, cool. This isn't the end. We got the Dust Pylon after this.
All right. The Doomstalker, it moves 10. It is toughness 7, 9 wounds, 3-up save, weapon skill, ballistic skill 4. It has 2 Gauss Slicers and Doomstalker Claws. Doomstalker Claws are 6 attack to strength 7, AP 2 damage 2. Okay, fine. It's not core because it's a monster. And the Gauss Slicer, which has 2, is 4 shots between the two. Or it's rapid fire 2. So 4 to 8 shots, strength 5, AP 1, damage 1. It's literally a pair. It's the Achilles bolters.
Yep.
The bolters on the Achilles. The Lastrum Storm bolters. Which are good on a thing that hits on 2s re-rolling because you have a guy next to it and rerolls 1s to wins because Trajan is a baller. On a guy that hits on 4s and does not reroll anything, it is substantially worse.
Well, this is actually the Acanthrites.
All right, well, let's queue up the Doomstalker. Where's that?
I don't even know where it is. I'm going to put it here with this Tomb Sentinel.
Yeah, it's terrible. How many points is this stupid
Horrendous. I think it's like 90.
It would have to be. Like, it doesn't reroll anything, so it doesn't do anything.
No.
Canoptek Acanthrites.
It's core. I think it gained core.
It gained core.
It gained core.
That does help it quite a lot. I don't think it's in YGWY. But just because it's a cheap OBSEC body that runs around.
Why would you not take Wraiths over this?
Sure,
Ophydian
Wraiths are
destroyers.
better. I agree.
Yeah, it has no purpose.
If it has core, I do think it's a little better, but oh my god. No, not by a lot. It also has a Gloom Prism, which is like, you're a budget spider.
Yeah.
The Acanthrites move 12. Did they get core? Did they get core? 6?
Yes, they have core.
Okay. They have a cutting beam, which is one shot at strength 8. It's a melta gun. Literally, they each have a melta gun. Which, just as a quick aside, every single time they take a melta gun profile, point for point, like stat line for stat line, and they put it on something new, and they call it something else, and they change the model so it doesn't literally hold a melta gun. People go crazy for it. Like the spears on the Custodes. But this is not good. Melta guns are not good. Do not be fooled. It's -1 to be hit and shooting, which good. It's 3 wounds, so it dies really fast. Yeah, this thing sucks.
Yep.
It is a Void Blade, which is dope. I think is the.
I don't care
is
what
that the
blade
power
it
sword?
is.
Is the Void Blade a power sword?
It's.
I think it is. Yeah.
It's something that's
this
not
thing
good.
has 2 attacks, just
Yeah.
for reference.
It's garbage.
Yes.
All right, give me the Gauss Pylon.
All right, Gauss Pylon.
There it
Cool.
is.
Here we are. So it doesn't move. Its movement value is dash.
I think it's 400 points now instead of 450.
Sounds right. Who knows? Toughness 8, 30 wounds, 3 up armor save. So it's very hard to kill. Friendly Necron models have a 5 up invuln against ranged attacks while they're within 6 inches. That's pretty dope. It can teleport, I guess. Its gun is...
It's core, Jack.
It is core, so it rerolls to hit. So it has Gauss Annihilator, which is either 120 inches, so you can hit, if your friend's having trouble 2 tables down at an event, you can shoot and help him out. Like, you can try and pick off something with 120 inches. Really, anything over 60 is pointless.
Nowadays, yeah.
But whatever. Heavy 2d3, strength 16, AP 4, damage 3, d3 plus 6. And then you get +2 to hit against aircraft. So you hit on 2s against aircraft as opposed to hitting on 4s against most things.
And Necron struggle against aircraft.
This is 400 points. It's not literally the worst thing in existence, but it's at 15 inches of a unit that does not move. It fires 12 shots of strength 6, AP 2, damage 2. Otherwise, it fires 6 of those.
Because it gives out the invuln, I'm willing to say it's a flawed choice.
Yeah.
Instead of just completely awful like these.
Yes, it will never get line of sight to anything your opponent does not want it to get line of sight to. That is why it's not the best.
Okay, yeah. So I see in chat there's a couple other ones. So the Annihilation Barge is with the Doomstalker here in terms of being just not good enough. It's 125 points for a bunch of no AP shots. Or you
no
can
AP
take,
is so not the way right now.
Or you can take the Gauss on there, and then it's just 6. It's like having 2 destroyers, but a little bit better defense and an extra speed. But it's just overcosted. That thing needs to be like 90 points for me to consider taking the Annihilation Barge. And then the Convergence of Dominion is one of the worst things in the game, alongside the Obelisk. It is a fortification that does nothing. It gives +2 leadership.
There are levels to how bad this thing is.
Just go ahead and tell them about it.
So you can teleport it around if you want to do actions near it. I think it gives +2 leadership to your army, which is so unnecessary. It's ridiculous. Your leadership 10 for the record.
They knew Chaos Knights were coming. Okay, they knew.
You must be leadership 12. No, it's that is ludicrous. Its guns are so bad. They're 12-inch range, D3 shot, strength 4, AP 3, damage 3. That doesn't kill anything reliably. They are toughness 8 with 10 wounds, 3 up save. So they are killable, which is, your opponent wouldn't even try.
They're core.
They can't move, so if they're in combat with you, you can't shoot them.
Yeah, they're core, though.
Sure. Right, yeah. Awesome. You can teleport it around by having Cryptoteks do actions, which you just will not do.
Are they 120 points? I think they're 120 points.
Did they go down at all?
They might have gone down to 100.
They may have. I think they went down to 100.
I think they went to 100.
Because I think I took a look at this just to find out how bad. Yeah, they're 120.
So they went down to 100, I believe. So yeah, they would be under YGWY. They're just what a unit! What a unit!
The 12-inch range on its gun is what kills me.
Every single rule about that is awful.
Yeah.
It's just so bad.
If it was strength 8 on its gun, or if it was like 2d3 shots blast or something.
If this was one of the unkillable fortifications, I still wouldn't take it.
Yeah. Well, what happens is you get it within range to shoot its awful, awful gun. Your opponent goes, I barely even noticed that, and then they touch it in combat. And all of a sudden, you can no longer shoot them anymore. And they'll also kill it on like their turn and on your turn, and then charge the rest of your army. It's really bad.
Okay, we've got the Overlord over here. So the Overlord is a basic lord he gives out +1 to hit. The Overlord gives out the +1 to hit. He is like 55 points cheaper than the command barge.
I have no idea.
Basically offers nothing else. The command barge is so vastly superior that there's no reason to run a basic Overlord.
Yes.
Just don't do it. Instead, find the points in your list with the points you've saved over these decreases, and just get the command barge if you want to run an Overlord. Otherwise, just run the Silent King and you're fine. You don't need this guy.
Yeah. The Royal Warden.
Royal Warden.
See, I know names. Mostly because I've been flipping back and forth through this book for the last hour and a half. But
he went down in points, and in addition to that, he core going everywhere helps him because he gives out a core buff, and that is fall back and shoot and charge, which is that's a good rule.
That is a very good rule.
Only thing that he does. And if you are running Zarek in Dynasty, you can pick the Silent King for that, which is cool. Otherwise, you have to pick something within your own dynasty.
He does have Relentless March, which I don't know. Do the Lord get?
Yeah, the Lords
they do. Okay,
yep.
So never mind.
Yep. So the Lords give out the +1 to move. He does as well, but it's redundant. They don't stack with each other, unfortunately. So it's a cool rule, but at the same time, I find that most of the Necron units, either if they get sent in, they're going to die in return, and so you don't need to fall back and charge. And if you have fall back and shoot, and you really want to shoot a lot, you can now, with your army-wide protocol, just pick fall back and shoot, and save the 65 points. He's not bad, honestly. He's bad.
He's fine. Yeah.
But it's hard once you start adding in a Chronomancer and maybe a Technomancer and the Silent King. You don't want to keep putting command points into this guy. I think he's perfectly fine.
I think he's perfectly fine. I don't have a problem with him, but nah. All right, something I don't have a problem with.
Scorpek Destroyers.
Scorpek Destroyers.
Let's just put them up there.
They're in tournament staple.
They are the best combat unit, in my opinion, because they have extra durability, where they don't instantly evaporate in return, because they have T5, -1 to wound with 1 CP, which is a great stratagem to have, and you can give them 5 minimum from the Chronomancer. On top of that, they have a good amount of attacks at high AP, multi-damage. They're just in a strong spot, and they're 30 points a model. I think it's very reasonable for them. They are in a very, very good spot. I usually run at least 2 units.
Yeah, I think they're very good. 2 to 3 units, 5 man's very solid. They hit like a truck next to the Silent King. They're obnoxious to kill with the -1 to wound. Your opponent always has to worry about that happening. You can resurrect them. They natively reroll 1s to hit. They're a phenomenal combat unit. And they're, 30 points?
30 points a model.
They're just great.
Yep.
Just take them. They're just good.
All right, we've got the Plasma Scythe. This guy is a separate data sheet that cannot do actions or act independently, because if he's not in range of a destroyer unit, he just dies. So they realized that this one guy would have just been doing actions and holding down objectives.
Yep,
so
that's all he would have done.
They saw that. He's only 15 points. What he does is if you're on a 2-up, he doesn't kill a model, and you get +1 strength and +1 attacks on your unit, which is good. I actually quite like him
It has to be within 6 inches.
Yeah, but you just fly him up and whatever. He could soak Overwatch for you as well. I think it's perfectly fine, the Plasma Scythe. If you have 15 spare points, throw one of these things in, and you can buff up your Scorpeks as needed, or you could roll one like me and get really mad at them.
Just really mad.
Real mad.
When does it do it? At the start of the charge fair fight phase, so you can't resurrect a model after that.
No.
No.
If you could, then I would run it all the time.
Yes. Yeah, because that would be amazing. You roll the one, you're like, yippee! Because then you res a guy forward and get extra movement, functionally.
We saved the best for last. Trazen, go ahead and read his rules.
Trazen the Infinite?
The Infinite.
Oh, I flipped right to it. It was meant to be. All right, he has an Empathic Obliterator, which is, again, very promising. Melee, he's strength 7, AP 1, which is okay. D3 damage, and if a character model is destroyed, which is super ambitious, every enemy unit within 6 inches of the bearer takes D3 mortal wounds. So he explodes you if he kills you, which he will not kill you. He is 4 attacks that hit on 2s. Good. Thank God for that. He's strength 7, AP 1, damage D3. That is not enough to kill any character other than like anything. The absolute worst, like commissars and whatnot.
Even then, it's not going to kill them. They have 5 pinball.
Probably not. Yeah, it's trash.
Read his rules. Read his unique rules.
All right, if he's included in your army, his combat is trash. Let's get to his rules. If the model is included in your army, the dynastic heirloom stratagem costs 1 fewer CP to use the first time you use it, and does something about Crusade rules that I refuse to read. You can pick a Necron core unit within 9 inches.
He has the normal Lord stuff.
Plus 1 to hit. That's my will be done. Surrogate Host. When it's destroyed, instead of using any other rule that is triggered when a model is destroyed, after removing it from play, you can roll 1d6. On a 2+, you can select another friendly Necron's infantry character model on the battlefield, excluding named characters. Remove that model as if it were destroyed, and then return this model to play, placing the removed model's place with 3 wounds remaining. A, what Necron infantry characters are you taking? And B, why are you killing them to keep Trajan around? Honestly, this is a negative. I do not want my ability to kill, my opponent to kill him, and then my Chronomancer goes away.
This is just he is YGWY. He is awful. What is the purpose?
He's an overlord that functionally gives you 1 CP. And he murders your Chronomancer every single time.
On a 2-up. You're like, give me the 1, baby.
Please, the 1!
Oh, he's so bad.
At least they said infantry character. Can you imagine if he was like, if he just bopped the Silent King?
Is it Dynasty? Yeah, it's not like the Dynasty because he's
It's Necron's infantry character. So just anybody on the board other than named character can just be like,
yep,
you're gone now.
The 2 good ones, the Command Barge and the Silent King, avoid it.
But your Chronomancer and your Technomancer, i.e. guys you really want to keep around, are going to get turned into Trajan.
Yep.
And that's not good.
Nope. So overall, this is looking quite a bit healthier than the.
You can. It's optional, and you will choose to not most of the time.
Yeah. No. Why you're not taking him first of all. So
Yikes.
Overall, this is looking quite a bit healthier than it was last time because guess what? This YGWY section was like 3 layers deep in the last time that we did it. It was at least 2 layers deep. Flawed choice. There's still quite a few units in there that are they're just not good enough. Even with the points decreases, their fundamental datasheet rules just aren't good enough. So at the point where they just become cheap enough where you want to run them, that's not really interesting. I would rather they just go back and look at some of these datasheets and errata them, personally. Just increase the diversity of builds. But the stuff up here, these first 3 layers, there's quite a few units, and there's a lot of diversity. There's a couple shooting units, there's quite a few melee units, there's a lot of support pieces, and there's some very interesting characters now. These first 3 layers, I think you're going to see them in almost every single list, is some combination of those units.
Yeah.
Flawed choices,
you're going to probably see Immortals a lot of the time, but you're not going to be happy about it.
Yep, I'm not happy about it.
No, you're not going to be happy about running them, but you're going to because it makes a legal list, and that's literally the only reason. I am actually very happy with where Necrons sit. They have a lot of build diversity. They have a lot of viable units. They really do. You take the Silent King like every single time, but other than that, they're just really solid.
Yep. I think Necrons are in a dramatically improved space, and some of the units up here perform their secondary games so well that you are able to score very highly on your points even when you're losing a lot of models, which is a huge benefit from Necrons because their damage isn't improved with this update. Because the vehicles getting core, they're so inconsistent that it doesn't add reliable damage outside of the Doom sites, in my opinion. So overall, I'm very happy with the Necron update. I think this increases the diversity of lists, and there are a lot of choices now, but there still could be more. So I hope they continue working on all the stuff that is down here so that they're more in this perfectly balanced territory, which I think is just where we're looking for.
Yeah,
as long as units are up here, there's a reason to run them. You're not going to run them in every list, but there's a reason to. That's the ideal. So hopefully Games Workshop continues improving the Necrons, and I'm going to keep being happy because I'm very excited about the Silent King. He's amazing, and I cannot wait to play more Necron games. Speaking of which, Jack and I are playing tomorrow. I am playing the Necrons up against Jack's Chaos, so we'll see how Necrons do into New Chaos. I'm excited to see how that goes. That's on YouTube tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, And if you want to check out some of the other games, we're going to be playing tons of new Necrons in the War Room as well. I'm doing a Necron clinic this week with Matt Robertson. We're going to talk about new lists and where we're headed with the faction. So if you want to check that out, head down to the description below where there's a link, theartofwar40k.com/learn more, where you can join the War Room, and that page has some sample content as well as the full details on all the awesome stuff that we put on in there. So check it out. Really appreciate your support. Hit the subscribe button. Give us a like. Tell us what you thought in the comments below. This helps with the YouTube algorithm, and we really appreciate everybody's support. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time, hopefully in the War Room game that Jack is about to play with Blood Angels vs. Graph World.
That should be a very fun game. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We will see you next time.
Bye-bye.